Chapter 219 Lord Malin spread his muscular arms wide to embrace Michael into a bear hug. Since gestures like this would strengthen the bond between them, Michael too embraced Malin without avoiding the hug. Gaia searched the hall for Nathan, but weirdly no one could be seen in the hall except two guards who quickly left the room after they entered. "I heard you made a friend out of House Kane," Lord Malin asked, releasing him from the hug. Then Malin acknowledged Gaia's presence by patting her on the shoulder. "Word travels fast, huh, Lord Malin?" Very Lord Malin, who recently reached the core strengthening stage, gestured at them towards the sofas. Various beverages including wine and ale were placed on a round table in front of the sofas. "Help yourselves out." Lord Malin took a glass for himself before pouring the ale into the glass. Michael nodded as he poured the grape juice into 2 glasses. He took one glass and handed over the other to Gaia. Lord Malin was surprised to see a heavenly blessed youngster such as Ghost treat a body-refining normal-looking girl like this, because any prodigy would have let the girl pour the drink. Ghost was not only a talented prodigy but also a 5-star alchemist. If he wished, beauties and even princesses would be in line to be his wives. They would treat him as their king, yet Malin could tell just by this simple gesture that he's treating this girl as his queen. Either Michael or Gaia had zero ideas that a simple gesture like pouring a juice to another made such an impression on Malin. "So Lord Malin, how's life treating you?" he asked, taking a sip of the grape juice. "I assume you have something important to talk to me, or you wouldn't have sent a secret letter." Lord Malin's face turned serious as he sighed. "I didn't like that method, kid, but I had to make sure no one sees you with anyone from House Bradley." "What's in your mind, Lord Malin?" "I'm sure you have a good reason to do that. What do you know about House Bradley?" "Nothing much, just the important things like House Bradley provides one of the best security services in Kethen and has numerous powerful connections across the continent," Gaia answered. Considering Malin noticed how Ghost treated the girl, he knew she must be important to Ghost. Therefore, Malin decided to give her the same respect as he was giving Ghost. For the outside world, House Bradley is thriving, but in reality House Bradley is in deep shit. "Vultures are picking our clients one by one." Gaia wondered why he was telling such weakness to 2 complete strangers. Noble families like them tend to keep things like this completely secret. She guessed that if he's telling this, he might ask something huge to be done by them. "I know you're wondering why am I telling you all this?" Malin leaned forward to refill his glass before speaking his kind. "I've been watching you, kid. You're making connections and a name for yourself. I can tell you that you have ambitions other than just reaching the immortal stage." Malin let out a deep breath. "How do you like making House Bradley your lifelong ally?" Malin asked. "I have to say, Lord Malin, that I'm indeed interested in such an offer. But first, you have to tell me, what do you want from me?" "I want you to brew this undetected poison to kill my brother." Lord Malin flicked his wrist as an old worn-out scroll appeared in his hand. "So you want us to kill the current leader? If he's messing up, why can't you and the elders force him to retire or something and choose a new leader?" Gaia asked while Michael was checking out the scroll. Lord Malin sighed heavily. He was hoping for them not to ask this question because it was really embarrassing for him to answer. However, this embarrassment was nothing compared to his family's future. "It's because my brother has found a loophole to hand over the leader position to someone else." "Nathan?" Gaia asked. "I wish." Apparently, Nathan has no interest in becoming the leader. All he wants is to become an alchemist like you. Michael did not show any expression on his face. "Then who does he want to be the next leader?" "The whore he's fucking." A wave of anger emerged in Malin's eyes. He continued to curse with gritted teeth. "He's planning to marry that whore. It stinks, but it happens." Gaia knew the feeling too well. His father married Zanala's mother after Gaia's mother died. Ever since he married her, Nagaland has been declining. Once a superpower, now became a kingdom with most debts to settle. If killing her father would save her kingdom, she would do it in a heartbeat. Therefore, she sympathized with Malin, who is trying to save his family from being destroyed by the mistakes of a single person. "Lord Malin, why kill your brother when you can kill her?" Michael asked him. "Say again?" "The whore's him, not her." Both Gaia and Michael couldn't help raising their brows in surprise while Malin's eyes twitched in embarrassment. Even though it was nothing to be ashamed of, this world didn't tolerate or take lightly to same-sex relationships. The churches of various gods were strongly against same-sex marriages, but there weren't any laws against them. Marrying a man-whore, that's new. Gaia had traveled almost everywhere in Elon and Azair, yet this was the first time she heard that a head of a noble family is thinking about marrying someone of the same gender. Now she could understand more why Malin wants to kill his own brother. If word got out of this marriage and he actually married him, she was positive that House Bradley is good as dead. On one side, the churches would use all of their power to make life harder for House Bradley, while the other rival families would use this to poach clients from House Bradley. What's stopping you from killing him, Lord Malin? Unlike Gaia, Michael was indifferent about who's fucking whom. We suspect that Man-Whore might have some connections with one of our rival families. If we killed him, they might release some scandalous documents or something that shouldn't be released. We cannot afford to take this risk. But if my brother were to die a natural death before he goes through with his marriage plan, he'll become the next family head and use all of the Bradley family resources to finally put an end to this fiasco. Natural death, that's where this potion comes, huh? This is indeed a very complex potion that can't be brewed by anyone other than a 5-star alchemist. Lord Malin seemed like he already knew this. But there's a problem with this poison, Lord Malin. Although it's colorless as water, one with an acute sense of smell could smell the poison. Are you willing to take the risk? I mean, if you get caught, you'll be ended as a traitor. Lord Malin rubbed his forehead, trying to make a decision. If you give me the ingredients, I can prove it to you. After a few minutes of pondering, Malin waved as a bunch of various ingredients appeared on the table. He wanted to check whether Ghost's statement about the poison was true or not. Seeing Ghost did not right out of the bat refuse to brew the poison, Lord Malin could heave a sigh of relief. Michael ignored the badass points notification sound in his mind and focused on brewing the poison. Malin heard about Ghost's alchemy skills, but seeing Ghost brew the poison with his own eyes still stunned him. In his eyes, Ghost looked like he's breezing through the process, showing no difficulties on his face despite the fact that this poison is one of the most complex potions to brew. Here you go, take a whiff, Michael said, pouring the colorless liquid into a glass vial. He then handed over the poison to Malin. It stinks. Gaia twitched her nose as, among the three of them, she got the most acute sense of smell. When Malin brought the vial closer to him, he began to smell the nauseating smell. It was faint, but it was there. Malin realized the meaning of Michael's words. He knew that if he used this to poison his brother, he would definitely detect the poison's presence. You know you cannot use this, Lord Malin. Fortunately, I know something that could do the trick. Your brother won't suspect a thing. Before Malin could react to his statement, another glass vial with a colorless liquid appeared in Michael's hands. This was the same poison Michael was using in his spiders to poison his enemies if he desired to. However, Michael did not remove the arch-energy radiation from the poison in his hand because it would freak out Malin and even lead to his own downfall. It's my own recipe. This poison is 10 times more lethal than the poison in your hand. Plus, it's odorless and disappears from the body in a matter of seconds, so even if a 6-star healer came to check the body, they will find nothing. Chapter 220. Lord Malin finally saw the dark side of Ghost. The usual cool smile disappeared and was replaced with a cold, murderous look. Even he felt slightly nervous after hearing about the poison in Ghost's hands. Use this to kill your brother. Michael handed over the poison to Lord Malin. Lord Malin took a long sniff, yet he could smell nothing. It was no different than water. As you said earlier, I do have ambitions and I like House Bradley to be my ally. After killing your brother, you and I know that it'd take even more cleaning in the house before stabilizing the family. I'll help any way I can to strengthen your position as the house leader. In other words, we'll supply you with this poison to take care of the vultures and anyone who opposes you in House Bradley, Gaia said. Lord Malin knew that he had to kill more people after killing his own brother. Until now, he was trying to be ignorant of the fact, but these two youngsters reminded him. Michael now took the upper hand in the negotiation. Lord Malin was desperate enough to ask his help to kill his own brother. How could Michael not use this opportunity to establish a connection with House Bradley? If he could get his arms around the leader himself, House Bradley would be as good as his own. At this time he would help do their dirty work. In the future, however, they would be the ones doing his dirty work. In return, I want House Bradley to provide me the security service for all my future business empires. What's your current price? 25% in profits? Well, give you 10%, Gaia finished Michael's sentence. Malin very well knew that the moment he revealed his desperation, they gained the upper hand. Yet this deal did sound like a good one to regain House Bradley's power. He heard about the Majestic and the restaurant Ghost was building. It didn't take a genius to realize the revenue of 50 Majestic stores. If House Bradley were to protect everything Ghost builds, 10% of the profits would be in millions per month. Just imagining it tempted Malin, overcoming the reluctance of killing many people on his way to the throne. Don't you have a single problem with my plan? Lord Malin couldn't help asking. The last time he saw Ghost, he was with Nathan and they seemed like good friends. If you're asking me if I have a problem with killing Nathan's father, I don't. You approached me with a good deal and I took it. It's how this world works, Lord Malin. We have to grab the opportunities that come in our way because they don't come often. Finally, Michael left the House Bradley compound, leaving Malin with the poison to kill his brother. How he poisons his brother didn't bother Michael. So what happens to your no-killing innocent rule? While walking through the snow-covered street, Gaia asked. Do you really think Malin's brother is innocent? Besides, even if he is, we cannot conquer this world without directly or indirectly killing a few innocents. I'm not stupid or naive to think we can get everything we want without sacrificing a few innocents or bending some of our moral codes. His words made Gaia arch her brows. She gently placed her hand on his shoulder. You are playing Lucifer, human, you're not him. Don't become the evil Dark Lord that the Guardians claiming you will be. I know, but there will always be dark before dawn. The more Michael moved forward with his plans to conquer this world, the more blurry the lines between good and bad become. Soon, they found a dark alley to change their faces and clothes to become completely new persons before leaving for the southern continent. Where to? Michael asked. He now looked like an average-looking youngster with shoulder-length raven black hair. As the majority of the youngsters in this world, he sported the clean-shaven look instead of his current stubble-beard look. His gray long-sleeved, leather jacket covered him too well below his knees and was half buttoned up slightly off-center. The sleeves of his jacket were quite narrow and reached down to well below his hands. They were decorated with a decorative band almost at the edges. The jacket had a wide V-neck which revealed part of the stylish black shirt worn below it and was worn with a dark rope belt, which was held together by a big belt buckle. The rope belt was mostly decorative but did serve its purpose. His black pants were simple and quite narrow and reached down to his soft leather boots. The boots were made from pretty unusual leather but were otherwise an ordinary design. Gaia on the other hand changed her hair from golden to dark brown and put the hair into a long ponytail instead of letting her hair free as she usually did. She wore the exact same clothes as Michael except she wore a breast holder underneath her shirt. To Kingdom Draddle, as she said, they took off from Ice Fair towards Kingdom Draddle. Regardless of night and day, they continuously fly towards Kingdom Draddle, taking only a few breaks for Gaia to munch on the food she brought. She was a girl who would share everything with Michael except her biscuits. However, Michael would steal some of her biscuits just to make her mad, which would eventually lead him to taste her cherry lips in the mid-air. It took them 2 weeks to reach the capital of Draddle. The city immediately reminded Michael of the city of Venice. Welcome to Bay City, Gaia said, looking at the city on the horizon. Michael could see depots, huge ships that he only saw in fantasy movies like Pirates of the Caribbean, and buildings built in water. Except for huge sail ships, the city completely resembled Venice to him. He couldn't see a city wall around the city nor any guards. What are looking at? Bay City has no entree fees. Fuckers milk the people by other taxes like a trading tax. They descended to the streets on the water. The people seemed like they were accustomed to seeing new faces every single day. The women carried baskets filled with freshly baked bread while most of the men near the depot worked various chores. Occasionally, Michael could see fancy carriages strolling towards the harbor area. However, his eyes were focused on the gigantic man of war at the harbor. The ship had 3 masts, each with 3 to 4 sails. The man of war was 60 meters long and almost had 130 guns. 4 at the bow, 8 at the stern, and the rest in each broadside. How much would that cost us? She was familiar with his desire to buy fancy things like this. 100 million gold coins minimum. I'll add that to the list you want to buy, she chuckled, punching him on the shoulder. Although she wouldn't be able to get him a man of warship for 100 million gold coins without him knowing, she would definitely gift him with something just as awesome as a man of warship. I want a fleet of man-o warships. After hearing his desire to buy a bunch of islands to enjoy his weekends, this didn't surprise Gaia very much. He began to walk towards the harbor, taking his gaze away from the man of war on the horizon. Upgrade your inventor trait to star level 6 and the host will be able to build ships that makes this man of war looks like a fishing boat. The system's voice made him halt his steps. Why are you smiling? Gaia noticed the sudden wide grin on his face. We should find ourselves a loyal 5-star blacksmith. Didn't you say Jack could become a blacksmith? He's loyal. Why don't we kidnap him and make him work for us, the other us? She wanted to kidnap Jack to Abyssal, but Michael knew this was not the right time to make a move on Jack. First, he wanted to see what it was like to be in the southern continent. If Lady Luck was on his side, he might be able to bring an army of gladiators to Abyssal. We can talk about that after we came back from southern continent. What do you think we'll find in Kingdom Jysel? Kingdom Jysel was the place the system showed him to go to find the source of Nightcrawler's artifact. I don't know, but we'll find out soon enough, he said, walking through the crowd in the depot area. Soon after they crossed the depot area, they entered the harbor area where he saw ships of all sizes docked. For the first time, he noticed groups of soldiers in metal armors at the far side of the harbor. On their side of the harbor, All the ships docked in were military ships that had cannons, mortars, and a few weapons Michael had no idea about. Ships to Kingdom Breedia. We have ships going to the Azer continent, come to me to buy your tickets. 3 places available on a ship to the southern continent. Michael turned his gaze away from the military harbor side to see a group of youngsters shouting at the crowd in front of them as loud as they could. What are we waiting for? Let's go. Chapter 221. Michael and Gaia approached the young boy who was shouting to get people on board a ship to the southern continent. Greeting young sir and young lady, are you thinking about visiting the beautiful southern continent? The boy quickly asked Michael and Gaia. You could say that the boy's face brightened up to see potential customers. Then you come to the right place. I have 3 tickets to onboard Captain Lars' majestic warship, Striker. Let me tell you this, you'll find no safer ship to travel than the Striker, the boy said, placing his hand on the chest. He sounded so truthful, but Gaia knew he would say anything to sell the tickets. How much is a ticket? Just 100 gold coins. If you buy 2, it'll be 180 gold coins. You should buy them quickly, young sir. There aren't any other ships going to southern continent in this weather. Michael looked at Gaia as she nodded. The young boy grinned ear to ear. After he handed over the pouch containing 180 gold coins, the young boy just weighed it using his bare hands before putting it into his space ring. They were surprised to see a space ring in a young boy who wore nothing but rag tunics that had several holes in them. Again, they understood that this young boy might be working for someone influential and powerful around this part of the city. Otherwise, he couldn't have afforded to keep his space ring intact with his hand. Follow me, young sir, young lady. Instead of giving the tickets, the young boy gestured at them to follow him behind. Customers coming through, surprisingly they followed the young boy to the military side of the harbor where Michael saw armed soldiers patrolling. However, they didn't stop them but let them through, asking no questions. Soon they came before a galleon. The ship had a broad hull and a carved keel and figurehead of a sea dragon. The ship could easily reach the length of 50 m and was armed with 30 cannons. If Michael was to compare this ship to something he had previously seen, he would say this ship looks like the Black Pearl. Here you go. The young boy took out 2 silver coins from his space ring. He tossed each of the coins to Michael and Gaia. No spell casting on the ship, the young boy warned before running to sell the remaining ticket. You sure we can use arch energy in the southern continent? Gaia asked again. This was the 3rd time she had asked the same question since they left Ice Fair. However, he was unable to give her anything except a simple answer of yes. The system required him to actually reach the location where the arch energy would be cut off from their bodies before offering him the solution. Since the system assured him that he could afford the solution it would tell him, he wasn't afraid of reaching the southern continent, but rather he was excited. Ask this question again and he'll kick your snake, but let's see who's kicking whose butt. He had a bad feeling seeing her evil laughter, yet he threw his arm around her neck before pinching her rosy cheek. The wooden plank creaked as they walked. When they reached the upper deck of the ship, they were welcomed by the sight of the ship's crew preparing to leave the harbor. They took a second to notice Michael and Gaia before returning to their duties. They didn't wear any kind of armor or uniform but wore open shirts and linen trousers. The commonality between all of them was the cutlasses hanging on their waists and the smell of the sea. Move your asses, maggots. I need Striker cleaned and prepared. Fair leave in the arbor soon as possible. Snap to it, lads. On a platform above the deck, a muscular man with a feather hat shouted at the crew standing near the rudder. In Michael's eyes, he looked like a typical pirate with a long dirty beard, a rum bottle in one hand and an eye patch. Do ye have the tickets? A skinny crew member with greasy blonde hair approached Michael and Gaia. Yeah, they showed the coins given to them by the young kid. Our mates, we have guests, cultivating guests. This one here looks like a genius o' some kind. Last looks fine too. Why don't you get the fuck out of my face and send someone else to show us where we'll be staying? The crews were stunned to see a gentle-looking girl speak the way she did. I like that there one. The captain leaped from the rudder and landed right before them like he was trained in the circus. Ye be welcome aboard, cultivators. The captain tried to imitate a noble bow sarcastically. The captain likes them, the crew laughed. Where we be going, your cultivation be as jolly as shite. The captain stared at them from top to bottom before taking a long sip of his rum. Jolly equals good. I be Captain Lars and this here old matey o' mine be called Striker. Do what I say, and when I say and yell, reach southern continent alive. Try to use your fancy spells air, I'll personally throw ye into the sea. Lars let out a burst of arch energy to reveal his core strengthening stage level 7 cultivation level. Trent air will show ye where ye'll be stayin'. Lars leaped again to reach the rudder again as the skinny crew member who's called Trent led Michael and Gaia to their rooms in the lower deck. We avenue to sleep at night, so don't do it so loudly. We won't complain if ye do to he. Trent laughed, fanning the flames of Michael's excitement. She expected Michael to open his mouth to say something, but she turned to see him licking his lips. He then winked at her as she couldn't help but roll her eyes. You wish, she flicked Michael's forehead. Why be the cultivators like yourselves going to the southern continent? Walking down the wooden stairs, Trent asked. To do business that's called none of your fucking business. Gaia was already annoyed by Michael's evil look, and Trent's question made her even more annoyed. Ye have some mouth, lass. I plan to take full advantage of it, Michael teased her, pinching her perfectly sculpted waist. Ah, she squealed after he pinched her hip, throwing a glare at Michael. Yet she soon laughed, which gave Michael a bad feeling. What is she planning? He asked himself. After walking a few more steps, they came before a 6-feet-tall wooden door. Trent opened the door to reveal a small room with 2 bunk beds. The room gave off a serious claustrophobic vibe, as it barely had any room to move around. At least we have a window, Michael sighed, looking at the small window near the bunk beds. If not for the windows, he knew they would be choked to death at night. We won't be sleeping in nights anyway. Gaia entered the room, shoving Trent away. Michael couldn't help but undress her in his mind. Although he had a bad feeling, he ignored those feelings, imagining a steamy night with her. All right, lovebirds, we serve what we catch in a few hours. Trent left them in the room. Michael entered the room, lowering his head to avoid hitting the door frame. I call the top bed, she shouted, but when she was about to jump to the upper bed, he pulled her by her waist. Where are you going? Michael was lying on the bed and she was on top of him. The bed creaked as both of their noses rubbed each other. Let me go, she tried to wiggle herself out of his hold. Give me a kiss, Michael chuckled. His fingers were running around her smooth back. Winter, small room, sea view. What a perfect time. Gaia stopped trying to get out of his hold. No marriage, no me, she teased him by slowly running her fingers around his chest. You never told me what kind of marriage you want? Simple wedding or fancy wedding? Don't you dare go for the simple one, I would kick your ass, she pinched his cheek. Fancy it is. I want our marriage to be one of a kind, she placed her head on Michael's chest. Flowers, music, fireworks. I want everything to be perfect. Everything will be more than perfect for my more than hot wife. The word wife made her blush and at the same time, put a beautiful smile on her face. Michael knew behind all that tough lady shell is a soft, beautiful girl hiding. Only in situations like this could he see that soft girl. If anyone asked if he plans to marry someone on Earth, his answer would have been a big no. However, now he couldn't wait to tie the knot. With her by his side, it felt magical. He couldn't even imagine a life without her. The same thing goes for her too. She wanted to be with him forever. Even if the entire world was against him, she would stand in front of him, not behind or beside, she would stand in front of him, shielding him from the world. Michael very well knew that this is just a calm before the upcoming storm. Therefore, he decided to enjoy every second of these peaceful moments. At this moment, no one except one knew the fate of the southern continent is going to be changed forever. As Michael thought, this chapter is just the calm before the storm. Get ready to come on a bumpy roller coaster ride from the Chapter 222. What are you thinking, Lars? It's not like this is your first time. Captain Lars was sitting in his captain's room, which was located directly under the rudder platform. He was talking to a glimmering gemstone at the center of his table. The table was a mess, as other than the glimmering gem, one could see various maps, papers, and metal pieces that seemed to have come from a broken cutlass. They do not seem like nobody cultivators. I don't want to get into trouble with them pesky guardians. Especially when I'm thinking about retiring from everything. Lars leaned back on his chair, taking a long sip from the rum bottle in his hand. The blue gemstone glimmered brightly. Don't worry, Lars. I investigated them, they are nobodies, they have no connections with guardians. Besides, you know my deal with them, I give them information and in return, they will turn a blind eye to my hobby. A thick voice of a male appeared from the gemstone. Lars began to rub his greasy beard before removing his hat to reveal his bald head. He put the hat on the table with a sigh. Then we make the transaction after we cross the void line. Don't approach us before. I'm not risking Striker take any damage if that their scurvy dog decided to throw some fancy-ass spells. We are not amateurs, Lars. Just give us a sign when you want to make the transaction. Hey, forgot to mention, watch over for pirates. I heard they are attacking merchant ships quite often now. Let them come, I'll show them what this bad lad could do. Lars snickered as the gemstone began to lose its shine and eventually dimmed out completely. Somewhere else in the ocean, something gigantic was moving in the dark depths of the ocean. It was so deep in the ocean that no mortal could venture into it without exploding due to the high pressure. The deepest depth of the ocean only had glowing anemones for a light source. The moving object emitted unearthly vibrations that sent ripples across the deep ocean. One could vaguely see the structure of a warship thanks to the glowing anemones. "Captain, that stinkin' striker be eddin' this here way," inside a dark room in the gigantic object, a voice said. "What good us attacking another ship would do?" Another voice sounded tired and uninterested in attacking a ship. "It's what we do, Captain, we be gentlemen o' fortune. Who knows how long we'll sleep this here time. So we must make the most out o' this. Gentlemen o' fortune equals pirates. I'm not the captain, Wiley." "The captain be long dead," the voice said. "Ye was the quartermaster when the captain died, that there makes ye the captain now. So do your captainly duty, captain. All right, send the word fare the men to prepare. Well, attack the striker when I give the order. The crew should use some fun before entering the long slumber. I want you to take me right here, right now." Gaia was slowly undressing, speaking in a seductive manner. She took off her winter coat, revealing the shirt she was wearing within. Michael dashed at her and lifted her off the ground to fasten the undressing process. "Wake the fuck up, human." Suddenly Michael's body stopped moving as he heard a voice. The Gaia in her hand slowly disappeared into the light. He opened his eyes to realize that it was just a dream, a sweet dream. "Couldn't you have waited just a little bit longer? I was just undressing you in my dream. Fucking pervert." She began to beat his chest like a drum, but she was careful not to fall into his hold again. "There's nothing perverted about it, you're my girl," he laughed. "And why are you waking up in the middle of the night? Go cultivate." He grabbed onto his blanket without any intention to give up. The sound of the waves, the cold breeze of the wind, and the small yet warm room gave his mind the peace to go for a long nap. "Unless you want me to bath you in cold water, you'll get up." All right, I'm getting up, but this is better be good, Snake." He rolled his eyes, finally letting go of his quilt. "Good boy." She ruffled his head like he was a little boy before dragging him out of the door by his hand. "So do you think the dream would come again?" He teased her on his way to the upper deck. "Fuck, human, what has gotten into you?" She sounded annoyed yet amused at the same time. "A cold winter, see, a beautiful girl who loves me in my bunk bed. You have no idea how much it would take a guy to control himself." She chuckled as they soon reached the upper deck. Michael expected to see crews running around the upper deck, making sure the ship stays in top condition, but to his surprise he saw no one. He stared at the rudder to see it automatically spinning like it was put on autopilot. Even in the captain's cabin, there were no lights on. He knew everyone was probably sleeping drunk to their throats, yet he was here, standing on an empty deck in the middle of a freezing winter. "Don't." When he was about to take his winter coat from his space ring, she stopped him. "Are you kidding me? I'm not freezing to death." He raised his voice. Unlike him, who was standing here bare-chested, she was wearing the winter coat and everything to keep her body warm without the use of arch energy. "I said I'd give you something special when we get on a ship to the southern continent, right? This is it." "This is what?" "Training to improve your close combat skills." Michael's jaw dropped a couple of inches. His eyes were full of disappointment. He seemed like a kid who got robbed of his Halloween candies. Even the system began to laugh inside his mind. He was not expecting this kind of physical activity. "He burn, but I was thinking," he sighed without finishing his sentence. He wanted to get mad at Gaia, but he couldn't, as he knew it was his fault for dreaming. She then slowly unmasked herself to show her real face, which made Michael's heart skip a beat. Raven black hair, perfect facial features, and a goddess-level hourglass figure, she was a beauty beyond words. He could stare at her all day, she was that beautiful. Miss Universes could hold a torch against her beauty. "I've seen you fight and it's an embarrassment." Her words brought him back from staring at her beauty. Soon he frowned. "Just a little motivation," she said, playing with her hair. "Embarrassment, huh? Why don't we spar?" Golden tiny light bolts emerged from his body, crackling around his body. He was ready to use lightning dash and teach her a lesson. Gaia immediately took a step back. She knew if he used his speed spell, it would be damn hard to land a hit on him, but she was expecting him to use this spell. "You can't use any spells." "That bitch Sadie didn't tell you everything about the first few rounds of the championship tournaments, did she?" she asked. "In the tournaments, there will be a round where you just have to fight. No arch energy, no spells, just good old-fashioned brawl." The crackles of lightning disappeared from Michael's body. He was absolutely positive to win a brawl if he could use the lightning dash. However, if he was unable to use his speed spell, he wasn't as confident as before. Without using lightning dash, he knew Gaia could beat him in a couple of seconds because he saw her fight. Her combat techniques and skills were far superior to the techniques he learned on Earth and inherited from Abra's system. Can you use the mentor function to boost my training? Yes. The system can activate the mentor function to speed up your learning process of new fighting technique as well as improve it for a price of course. After getting the confirmation from the system, a small smile emerged on his face. If he could learn Gaia's fighting technique and perfect it with the help of the system, he would beat all the competitors at the tournament Black and Blue. On top of this, he was already thinking about a prototype that would ensure his victory. What do you want me to do? He asked. Just start with free weight training to shed all that shabby fat in your body. He was surprised because although he wasn't as toned as some magazine models, he was lean and had noticeable muscle definition. Any girl would love to see him naked but not Gaia. You're telling me this is fat? He asked, pointing at his six-packs. Meh, she waved off before flicking her wrist. The next moment, Michael saw numerous metal plates, logs, bags that looked freaking heavy and a bunch of unknown things appeared on the deck. I got these from a muscle mountain I killed. We can use these to get you into shape. She kicked one of the metal balls towards Michael's direction. Remember, you can't use arch energy or any of your freaky things. Do this and he'll bunk with you every night after the training. Done? Michael did not need any motivation other than this. It was a damn good deal if anyone asked him. Chapter 223, Come on, move your ass. Ah, fuck. On the upper deck, Michael was carrying a 300 kilograms log on his shoulder and walking from one end of the ship to another through the knee-high snow on the floor. All of his muscles were screaming as even in the cold weather, he was sweating like he was walking in the desert. Despite his suffering, she was hitting him with a stick every time he slowed down. One could see zigzags of red lines on his fair back. During his training, she was a completely different woman. After training, although he would drink a healing potion to heal himself, she would massage his back, pour him coffee and care for him like a perfect wife. Her care for him during the daytime was absolutely worth all this pain in his mind. You're such a bitch, yet Michael couldn't help cursing when she attacked him with a stick again. What did you call me? She was laughing, yet she put on a mad face just to make him walk faster to avoid getting hit by her. She didn't love or take any pleasure in hitting him. It was part of training before she could actually teach him the secret fighting technique she inherited from her mother. Gaia's mother's father created this technique himself while Gaia's mother fused a few other techniques and Gaia was trying to perfect the fighting technique. Before the tournament began, she wanted to teach him the fighting technique so he could beat all the fighters in the tournament. After walking the 50th time carrying the 300 kilograms log, he finally completed the set. He was exhausted as he wanted to immediately lie down on the snow, yet he had a lot of other workouts to do. Good, let's work on your kick. She lifted his right leg. He adjusted his body not to fall down while his left leg was on her shoulder. Leg work is vital to what he'll teach you soon. Now, lift it higher. She was lifting his leg higher and higher to the point he began to feel excruciating pain between his legs. Keep it still for 30 minutes. It has been a week since he started his first training. This was the second most painful week he ever had. The first one was when he was training with Spectre back on Earth. So you did this when you were training? He asked Gaia, who was sitting on a pile of snow. I'm not a puny human, so no, I didn't. She retrieved her snacks from the space ring. She had enough snacks to feed an entire family of 5 for a whole month. You know, you should learn how to cook, Michael said while trying his best to keep his leg higher. Why is, thought, words barely escape her biscuit-filled mouth. As if no, Hob. To cook, for your information, I do know how to cook, Michael proudly said, putting his trust in the system. If push comes to shove, he would become a star chef himself. After all, personally cooking was more romantic than buying from a restaurant. Really? She swallowed everything in her mouth, gawking at him in surprise. Then I'll learn. Meanwhile, down in the crew member quarters, Captain Lars was lying on a bed. He was drowning himself in rum as the crew members surrounded him. They were gossiping. Be they still doing it? Yeah, I'm afraid that their lad might die before we and them owe her to the buyer. That last be a fucking dominatrix. Why be they trainin' anyway? It's not like Avon muscles would save them after they crossed the void line. Why would they even go to the southern continent? If I born in the northern continents and be able to cultivate, I'd stay the fuck out o a place where I cannot use me powers. Cultivators be evil shites. They do evil shite every single day like grabbin' a piss. Jolly thin they ave a guardian guild to put them in the leash. Just imagine a gentleman o' fortune ship with cultivators fare the crew. Don't forget about the void. If it wasn't fair the void, the northern kings would ave long conquered the southern continent. Captain Lars dropped the empty rum bottle to join the conversation. Ye got it all wrong, men. The void line isn't Savon, the southern continent, from the northern continent, it's the other way around. The southerners make northerners look like a pissin' little child when it comes to doing evil shits. Slavery, constant massacres, piracy, organ trafficking, experiments on poor bastards, and a shite load o' other evil things. Oh, I forgot about the corruption. If ye have gold coins, ye can do anything and bribe anyone. Them senators be just pirates livin' on the land. Speakin' o' gentlemen o' fortune, Cap'n, I heard some powerful kingdoms in the Ara continent puttin' to the sky a naval unit to clean up the pirates. Licky aft on Pirate Cove said other continents might call these pirate destroyers. For a few moments, the crew quarters went into silence mode. Another reason for me to retire. I'm too old to deal with new shits, Lars sighed. Cap'n, what about us? After sellin' the 2 cultivators, well, split the gold and go our separate way. I'm plannin' to join a pirate crew. I always wanted to be a pirate. I'm going to the Pirate Cove and drink to death. I just want to travel. The crew started to discuss their future endeavors after selling Michael and Gaia to the one who called the buyer. The cultivators would lose their connection with arch energy or any kind of energy after crossing the void line and become mortals like them. These crew would use this to sell them to the buyer. Neither the crew nor the Lars knew what would happen to those they sell, but they didn't care for them as much as they did for the gold coins. Meanwhile, in Penn Town, Noah's house was lit up brighter than usual. The house sparkled with various colored light stones. The house was decorated as the house was on Earth during Christmas time. The house was filled with laughter and happiness. Diana was sitting on the far end of the oak table, looking at her family and the countless delicacies on the table. A giant teddy bear-shaped cake took most of the space, while on the top of the number, one could see the number 22 made of sparkling material. The table was occupied by all the Winston family members, but it was the 2 sitting on Diana's left side and the 1 sitting on her right side at the table that got the most attention. The 1 sitting on Diana's left was a young girl in her mid-20s. She had raven black hair, a perfect jawline that made her extremely beautiful. Her hazel eyes scanned everything and everyone in the room calmly. A tiny black mole above her lip enhanced her beauty even further. Despite her calm look, she was the strongest in the room, core strengthening stage level 10. She was Noah's big sister, Rowena Winston, the holy maiden of Skyhall. The golden Babaru Norvin was jumping around the table, picking every delicacy he could before jumping onto Alicia's shoulder. Maisie was enjoying the fried turkey leg while trying to catch Norvin to pet. At the table, Natalia was laughing with a golden-haired youngster, Andrew Winston. He was completely cured after Michael gave him the antidote for the poison and healed the star pox. Imelda was running around, bringing more and more food to the table despite Butler Samuel's strong disagreement with her doing all the work that should be done by him. Imelda waved off Samuel as she came to Noah carrying a huge chunk of juicy golden meat slice. Why am I not seeing an empty plate, birthday boy? Aunt, no. Noah shouted, but Imelda already put the slice of meat in his place, ruffling his hair playfully. Take mine too. Sabrina used this opportunity to pass the slice of meat on her plate to his. Everyone laughed seeing Noah's helpless reaction. Lady Diana, may I bring you another grilled fish? Samuel asked. Diana was looking at her family, but one could see her mind was somewhere else. Except for Imelda, no one knew what she was thinking. Mom, Rowena placed her hand on Diana's shoulder. Yet Diana seemed not to have noticed Rowena or anyone else. She just kept staring at the 22 at the top of the cake. Lady Diana, while she was staring at the cake, a guard covered in snow entered the room. Only now, Diana's gaze turned away from the cake. Looking at the guard, she almost stood up. Young Master Ghost has left the Sunrise Sect to enter seclusion, Lady Diana. No one knew where he went. The liveliness that appeared in her eyes vanished away after hearing the guard's words. Her eyes almost welled up, but she was able to control them from rolling out of her beautiful eyes. It's my fault. I should have invited him back at the auction, Noah sighed. It was either wait for him or save a village from a rogue cultivator, Noah. I think you made the right choice, Alicia said. Her voice contained a tingle of coldness. It's unfortunate. I wanted to thank him for saving me. Andrew shook his head. And I wanted to save him for saving Mom and Sabi. Didn't you say he was at core formation level 3 when he's here? I wonder what kind of cultivation method he's using to break through this fast. Andrew spoke while many family members gasped in surprise. His cultivation speed was compared to Rowena herself. Did you search everywhere? Diana raised her voice. This day wasn't only Noah's birthday but also her other son, Dean's, also known as Ghost by the World. She wanted to see her son again on his birthday, yet the disappointment was turning into pointless anger inside her. Chapter 224, It's No One's Fault. Imelda raised her voice and turned her gaze towards the guard standing in the doorway. Kim, take the day off. The guards left the dining hall after bowing in her direction. The joyous laughter vanished away as silence occupied the hall. Is it true, young Master Noah, that young Master Ghost is a friend of House Cain? I heard from our spies that he has seen with Elder Walter at the auction house. Samuel changed the topic to make the hall lively again. A few sounds of gasps could be heard in the hall. Most of the family members knew how hard it is to establish a connection with any of the noble families in royal land, let alone becoming a friend of House Cain, one of the most powerful families in royal land. Then he made an enemy out of House Fisher and probably House Oswin too, Alicia snickered. Every pair of eyes landed on her, expecting an explanation for her statement. Diana's heart skipped a beat hearing her son has made an enemy out of two powerful families. If Noah pissed off any of the noble families, he had his family and guardians to protect him, but her other son had to face them alone. This made her motherly feelings to protect her son erupt in her heart. 2 decades ago, she utterly failed as a mother. She wanted to redeem herself, yet she wouldn't be able with Sky Hall in her way. Until Sky Hall exists, her son would always be in danger unless she never reveals the fact that Ghost is her own son. Neither her family nor Ghost was strong enough to take on the Sky Hall. She knew this, and this was the only thing keeping her from reuniting with her son. I heard he and the daughter of the second Oswin brother have some bad blood between them. Hence, he made an enemy out of House Oswin. What's her name? Andrews asked. Selena Oswin. Since he has reached the core formation stage, he would either fight Selena or her fiancé Alex Fisher. By allying with House Cain, the rival family of House Fisher, he is already on the bad side of House Fisher. Unless he loses to either of them, he would be in trouble with those families, Alicia explained. Do you think either of them can defeat him in the championship tournament? Natalia asked. Although Alicia didn't want to believe it, she thought either Selena or Alex would be able to defeat Ghost. In her mind, only Noah could defeat him among the same generation as Ghost. No. I saw each of them fight. They can't defeat him, said Noah, recalling the time when he fought with Ghost against the core formation beats inside the Nether Realm. If it wasn't for the stupid rule that guilds cannot compete in the championship tournaments, Brother Noah would have defeated him, Maisie said as many of the family members nodded in agreement. Rowena saw the uncertainty in Noah's eyes for the first time. Rowena trained with her little brother, and she could tell that even though Noah was at the body strengthening stage level 10, he could beat anyone below core formation level 5, yet he seemed uncertain about defeating a core formation level 3 cultivator. Diana heaved a sigh of relief, thanking the rules preventing the Guardian Guild from competing in the tournaments. The last thing she wanted was her 2 sons fighting each other. If they were to face Sky Hall in the future, her children must stand together rather than against each other. Noah, do you think you can defeat him if you fought him in the tournament? Rowena calmly asked. I'm not sure. I have a feeling that he hasn't shown the full extent of his power to the world yet. The tournament will be a good place to study him. If that's the case, I'm sure the Guardian Guild is already putting up a file on him. Places like the Guardian Guild don't like to deal with the unknown. What about Sky Hall? Sabrina asked while Rowena took a sip from her wine glass. Unless one reaches the fusion stage, Sky Hall wouldn't care. We have bigger fish to fry. Her face showed no expression, neither arrogance nor pride could be seen in her eyes. If Alicia was cold, Rowena was colder. However, she loved her family the most. If she had to choose between Sky Hall and her family, she would choose the latter in a heartbeat. When came to know about the assassination attempt on her sister and mother, she personally hunted down all the known associates of Giles and Jacobs without showing them a shred of mercy. I don't want any of you to fight with Ghost, Diana said. It didn't sound like a request but rather like an order. Noah saw her looking at him when she talked. He frowned because, in his mother's eyes, he saw something that's more than gratefulness of Ghost saving her and Sabrina. Allying with Ghost, a 5-star alchemist and a prodigy, is good for Winston family, Diana quickly said before her children started to doubt her. I agree with Aunt. If it was up to me, I would have given him the banner of the Winston family as a token for showing our gratitude. Some of the elders nodded in approval. Yet Noah seemed to disagree with Andrew. Noah? Andrews noticed Noah's silence and called out his name to hear his opinion. I think the Winston family and Ghost has some conflict of interests. Noah took a sip of wine before continuing. I don't think selfish people like him would not bring any benefits to the Winston family. Selfish? Diana frowned. Yes, he could have joined the Guardians and helped many with his talents, yet he chose to get richer. And he stole my dragon, Maisie shouted, punching the table with her little fist. Noah, he saved Sabrina and Aunt on the same day. I don't see how that's selfish, Andrews said. I am grateful for what he did, there's no denying that. But didn't Sabi say it was the dragon who came to her rescue first? Besides, Noah doubted that Ghost might have something to do with Jacob's letter because Noah doubted that Giles would be stupid enough to put his name on a letter that completely incriminates him. Yet he wasn't completely sure about that, and Giles turned out to be guilty when Rowena went on her killing spree. Although Giles escaped, Noah knew it was only a matter of time before he found him. Of course he came to save the dragon and ended up saving Sabrina, Alicia said. After hearing their words, Diana stomped the ground as the ground trembled. Stop it, all of you. We will not forget what he did. If it wasn't for him, Sabi, Andrews and him wouldn't be here. I don't want to hear any of you speak so ungrateful ever again in my house. The entire hall went dead silent seeing Diana's domineering face. It wasn't often she would lose her cool like that. On top of that, this was the first time they saw her raise her voice at Noah. Even Noah himself was stunned to hear her. Enough of this. Today's a celebration, so let's celebrate. Imelda quickly tried to elevate the mood in the hall. Inside Peyton's manor, Zanali and Peyton were staring at a table full of documents. So Connor lost him? Peyton creased her brows as Zanali shook her head. Ghost has been using teleportation scrolls to travel between kingdoms, Peyton. How could Connor follow him? However, despite him using teleportation scrolls, I'd say Connor did a good job providing us with all this information on Ghost teleportation scrolls, huh? I wonder where he is getting all those rare scrolls. Peyton rubbed her chin while Zanali put Michael's portrait next to the portrait of a question mark. Lucifer said he's giving the criminals 2 months. Ghost went into seclusion at the same time. Lucifer came just a few months after Ghost made his appearance at River Town. We don't know anything about him before he came to River Town. Zanali kept listing out facts to Peyton. Few days before Nightcrawler was killed by Lucifer, Ghost came to Flamefair. Zanali paused for a moment. Where are you going with this, Zanali? I think Ghost is working for Lucifer. Peyton just stared at all the documents at the table, pondering about what Zanali just said. Everything you said might be just a coincidence, but we can neither confirm it nor deny your doubt. I like your theory, we just need more solid proof. Peyton was desperate to find Lucifer so she could hunt him down. His accusation of them killing the nobles almost jeopardized the whole operation and brought down the wrath of a guardian captain. Allocate more resources to Connor and bring us the best teleportation expert in the guild. I want to know every move Ghost makes, as you wish. Also, I want to put a surveillance team around the Sunrise sect. Go ahead, but be careful. A soul refiner is living there. Zanali nodded with a smile. She then quickly stacked all the documents on the table neatly. Let me guess, you were invited to Noah's birthday party. Chapter 225. The forest surrounding the Sunrise sect was large, thick, and archaic. Its canopy was ruled by monstrous linden, purple cottonwood, and gigantic chestnut. The occasional beam of light that made its way through the canopy allowed bright shrubs to cultivate the rich grounds below. Coiling climbing plants grasped many trees, and a medley of flowers, which blossomed brightly, protruded from the otherwise colorless view. A variety of sounds, belonging mostly to vermin, filled the air and were out of sync with the trickling sounds of a gentle river stream. Hiding within the thick forest, Connors was watching at a construction site a few hundred meters away. He was wearing full white clothes to blend in with the snow in the forest. At the construction site, he could see several black uniformed disciples helping the construction workers. Just by looking at the construction site and the tons of wood, marble, stones, and glasses they were bringing in, he could tell they were building not just a house but a huge mansion. The dwarf engineering was a dead giveaway, showing the intricate design of the mansion. Where are you, Ghost? Connors mumbled. It has been a month since he was allocated more resources to gather more information about Ghost. Considering Ghost disappeared using a teleportation scroll a month ago, he couldn't follow him. Therefore he was surveying the sect and his underlings were surveying Ghost's restaurant in River Town. Whoosh. A shadow brought extra darkness to the forest as Connors looked upwards to see Ghost's pet dragon hovering over the sky before flying towards the construction site. This was the third time he had seen the dragon, yet it always freaked him out regardless of its body-strengthening cultivation level. It wasn't a full-grown dragon yet. The dragon was almost 3 m long, almost the size of a full-grown horse. Bright scarlet-red eyes sat well within the dragon's rounded, scaled skull, which gave the creature a frightening-looking appearance. The dragon had crimson-red shiny scales that made the dragon look more majestic and noble. 2 small crystal growths sat atop its head, just above its thin, curved ears. Its nose was short and had 2 wide, slitted nostrils, and there were crystal growths on its chin. Several razor-sharp teeth poked out from the side of its mouth and gave a preview of the terror hiding inside. A wide neck ran down from its head and into a slender body. The top was covered in wide scales and a row of small tendrils runs down its spine. The dragon's belly was covered in radiant gray scales and shinier than the rest of its body. 4 slender limbs carried its body and allowed the creature to stand sturdy and elegantly. The most iconic feature of the dragon was its colossal wings that grew starting from just above its shoulders and ended at the end of its shoulder blades. The wings were bladed in structure. The skin of the wings seems to glow as if made from the fire itself, and armor-like scales grow on top of the wings' primary bones. Its graceful tail ended in a sharp arrowhead-shaped tip and was covered in the same scarlet-red scales as its body. "How's the work going?" The dragon's voice sent a chill running through Connor's spine, yet at the same time, it kindled his hunting spirit. He wanted to hunt down this creature and put its head on his wall. It would definitely increase his status among the other Guardian trainees in Operation Dawn. When Connor received Ghost as his target from Peyton, he was beyond excited because unlike Lucifer or any other targets on the list, Ghost seemed to be the most overrated yet easiest one in his eyes. The only drawback was Ghost's teleportation. Now, Peyton allocated more resources and a team of dedicated teleportation experts working on a rune that would track Ghost's activity even after he teleports. If he could gather enough evidence to neutralize Ghost, this would catapult his career through the roof. His family spent millions of gold coins to help his cultivation, otherwise he wouldn't have reached the core formation stage at just 27 years old. If he could become a full-fledged Guardian, he could earn what they spent in just a couple of years. As any Guardian, his life would be spending nights with countless beauties as well as attending balls organized by various noble families. Whoosh! The dragon flapped its wings, taking off from the ground. The heat radiated from its body melted the snow where it was standing a moment before. Connors quickly hid behind a chestnut tree. It was not the time for him to hunt this creature. Connors continued to watch the construction site as well as the female disciples who were bringing hot beverages to the workers through a rune-placed monocular. Crick. Suddenly, in his interest in checking out the female disciples, he ignored the sound coming from behind. "Hey!" Connors almost dropped the monocular as his body jerked when he heard the voice. He immediately turned back to see a golden-haired youngster staring back at him. On the ground, Connors saw a basket full of chestnuts as the golden-haired youngster unsheathed his sword. Jack Connors knew almost every single known associate of Ghost. So, he naturally recognized the golden-haired youngster as Jack, one of the most loyal lackeys of Ghost. "What are you doing here?" Jack saw spell scrolls, weird pieces of equipment lying around the white-clothed man. Jack couldn't see his face through the mask, yet his fully covered face only increased Jack's suspicion. "Calm down," Connor let out a burst of arch energy showing his cultivation level. "Who are you and what are you doing here?" Jack shouted at Connors fearlessly. The image of Gaia and Ghost in his heart gave him the courage to face a core formation intruder. Connors was slightly surprised to see the fearless expression on Jack's face as he slowly stepped towards Jack. "You sick bastard, are you spying on us?" Jack took a step forward. "Yes," Connors calmly said. "Surrender peacefully," Jack threatened Connors. Unlike Michael or Gaia, Jack never had real-world battle experience. If he had, he would have called for help instead of asking Connors to surrender. "If you come with me peacefully, I'll ask Sister Elia to go easy on you." Connors burst into laughter after hearing Jack's words. Jack creased his brows. Until now he didn't think to call for others. His devotion towards Gaia and Ghost gave him blind courage. "Elia, the body-refining bitch of Ghost?" Connors laughed, thinking that Jack threatened him by mentioning Elia, Ghost's girlfriend, instead of using Ghost's name. "How dare you!" Jack lost his cool when he heard Connors call Elia a bitch. Although Gaia would constantly slap him around, he always thought of her as his big sister. Every time he got into trouble, she would beat him silly but always got him out of the trouble at the end. Jack respected and loved Ghost as his brother, but he worshipped Elia because compared to Ghost, he spent more time with Elia. Even when all of his friends were against him for loving Nyla, Elia supported him, saying he should listen to his heart rather than to others. She was his big sister he never had. Jack leaped at Connors, raising his sword. He tried to use what he learned from Ghost and sword mastery. Void Step. Connors cast the spell as Jack saw him vanish into thin air. The very next moment after he saw the intruder vanish, he felt a sharp pain in his chest. "Ouch!" Jack coughed a mouthful of warm blood. He looked down to see a sharp dagger sticking out of his chest. Jack tried to take out a healing potion from his ring, but before he could access the ring, he felt another excruciating sharp pain in his chest. Jack's body lost the strength to stand straight as he stumbled down on the ground. He crawled through the snow towards a tree. Connors appeared beside Jack before kicking Jack in the gut. The kick sent Jack flying into a tree. He coughed up more blood as his vision began to blur. He barely saw the white-masked figure squatting in front of him. Sister. Elia, cough, cough, Will? Poch. Jack wanted to scream in pain, but all he heard was a chuckle from the masked figure. Placing his hand on Jack's shoulder, Connor slowly thrust his dagger deeper into Jack's heart. Come, for, you, cough, the words barely escaped Jack's mouth. It was too late for Jack to realize that he should have called for help. Even in his last moments, he believed his sister Elia would come out of nowhere and save him. He refused to believe that he was dying. The snow below him turned red from the blood coming out of his wounds. You were in the wrong place at the wrong time, Connor said, removing Jack's bloody hand from his chest. In his last moments, Jack felt the embroidered symbol on the masked figure's chest. Connor saw Jack close his eyes, but he could swear that he saw a tiny smile on the corner of Jack's bloody mouth. Since his place was uncovered by Jack and probably someone could soon come looking for Jack, Connors immediately gathered all of his equipment, preparing to leave the place. Although he was dying, he didn't worry about his family because he knew Ghost and Sister Elia would look after them and avenge his death. An image of him getting slapped around by Gaia appeared in Jack's mind before everything turned into darkness. Chapter 226. It's been 33 days since we left the Draddle, Michael said, watching the cloudy night sky. Today was a rest day from his hellish training. He wanted to spend the day with Gaia peacefully, but she was unusually silent. She was standing on the edge of the ship, staring at the direction they came from. What is it? Michael came to her side to accompany her in staring at the dark sea. I'm feeling something I've never felt before, she said. Her voice was quieter than usual. It might be seasickness, Michael just shrugged. Surprisingly, she didn't laugh or give a reaction at all, she just kept staring at the horizon. I can't describe this feeling, it's like someone's desperately calling me. Do you think something could have happened at the sect? He shook his head. He made sure that his sect stays safe before leaving, but even after everything he did, it's far beyond his control if something still happened. For now, he wanted to get the artifact related to Nightcrawler's artifact as soon as possible. After that, he would revive the demon soul waiting back at the Abyssal. Instead of using words, Michael just wrapped his hand around her shoulder. She gently kissed his arm before resting her head on his shoulder. Having him beside her made her feel better. In a few more hours, Well crossed the void line. On top of her words, he could already feel the density of the arch energy gradually decreasing in the atmosphere. He took a long breath. After crossing the void line, it was up to the system to save their bacon. The system will scan the atmosphere to create a solution in an hour, the system reassured Michael. The further they moved towards the invincible void line, the force of the wind increased significantly. His long gray long coat fluttered back in the wind along with his raven black hair. Approximately 2 hours later, Michael noticed a significant decrease in the snowfall. In the distant sky above the horizon, he could see a couple of glimmering stars in the sky. He was staring at the welcoming sight of the cloudless sky when he noticed an object floating in the sky. The system has scanned the atmosphere and found that something extraterrestrial is consuming the arch energy in the atmosphere around the southern continent. Michael entered the system after he heard the words. Extraterrestrial? Can you identify what sort of alien we are dealing with? System's level is too low, he sighed, except the system's next words shocked him even more. But the system recommends not to go search for the extraterrestrial being, at least the host is an immortal. I thought him the only alien in this world, but it seems I was wrong. What about the solution? If it's consuming all the arch energy. His voice trailed off. Although the extraterrestrial being is consuming the arch energy in the atmosphere, it's not void of arch energy. No cultivator or a magical beak could use the tiny amount of arch energy in the atmosphere, but you can, he finished the system's words. Yes. So get ready to give the system 40,000 badass points to enable the energy extractor function. System version 3.0 host. Michael cultivation level. Core formation stage level 3 experience points. 5,000/400000 badass points. 92,000 skills and spells. Wind Blast LVL2 Responsive Shield LVL3 Environment Scanning LVL2 Ignitia, LVL2 Lightning Dash, LVL2 Energy Devour, LVL1 Death Range LVL2 Techniques. Swords of Destiny 90% Mastery Ring of Fire, 59% Mastery Serpent Maga, 80% Mastery Occupation. Core Disciple of Sunrise Sect, the Guardian of Sunrise Sect, Lord Lucifer of the Abyssal Status. Healthy Goals. Control the World, Rebuild the Order of Death Utility Function. Banker, LVL3, Ratio 1000 Gold Coins, 10 Badass Points, Runic Teleportation Wealth, 11 million gold special trait. 5-star alchemist, 3-star inventor subordinates. Gaia warrior, loyalty level 100%. Raylene, 5-star chef, loyalty level 98%. Arya, assassin, loyalty level 29%. Base of operation. Sunrise sect, the abyssal, 40,000. Geez, he sighed in his mind before asking more about this function. So if I pay what you ask and enable the function, can I use my full cultivation power in the southern continent? No. You will be able to use your cultivation power 3 hours a day. Your chosen subordinate can use their cultivation power for 2 hours a day. You know what? I'm not even surprised. He knew there must be a catch when it comes to systems offers. Despite the time limit restriction, he had no other choice than enabling the function for 40,000 badass points. Stop pondering too much, host. It's not like you have any choice, the system snickered. I have to stop upgrading, you sound more and more like an asshole, Michael said in an irritated voice after he heard the system's words filled with arrogance. The system did not reply as it remained silent until he asked another question. So the function is upgradable or not? The next upgrade will let the host use your cultivation power for 5 hours and subordinates can use it for 4 hours, but you're too poor. Get me 200,000 badass points and then we'll talk. The system sounded more like Gaia. He could only deal 1 Gaia at a time, so he remained calm despite the system's tone. Alright, I'll buy the function. Wonderful, was it so hard? You're being a jerk because I have to depend on you more to survive in the southern continent, aren't you? Michael was stunned for a moment to hear the system giggle. He could tell it's becoming more and more like a human being with time and level. He wondered how human-like it would be when he upgrades it again. A few moments after, the badass points decreased from 90,000 to 50,000. The system has successfully enabled the energy extractor function. The host can now choose a subordinate to share the energy extractor function with. Do I really have to spell the name? It's Gaia. Leave the system and place your hand on subordinate's forehead. Rather than Michael exiting the system, he was thrown out of the system as everything around him began to move. What an asshole of a system I have, he cursed the system in his mind. He then turned his gaze away from the object to Gaia. Her face was still dull. It was obvious she's still trying to figure out the reason for her bad feelings. This will cheer you up, Michael placed his hand on her forehead. She was about to ask a question when she felt a tingling sensation inside her head. Along with the tingling sensation, she was able to sense arch energy in the atmosphere as she was back on the northern continents. What? She let out a quick bark of laughter in shock. Her mouth kept opening and closing. How? I can use my cultivation power for 3 hours a day and you can use it for 2 hours? When Michael thought about it, the 3-hour time was not less but rather it was enough. By using spells, no one in the southern continent would be his match. Hence, there wouldn't be a need for using arch energy for 3 hours. He just had to find a way to travel without flying because flying was the only thing that could require him to use arch energy for more than 3 hours. We are gonna rule the southern continent. As Michael guessed, this made Gaia forget about the bad feeling and made her bounce in joy. He couldn't help smiling looking at her laugh. We still have to deal with the utmost caution, Gaia. What we are about to do will get every major power including the top heads of the Guardian Guild. They might not come looking for us in the southern continent as it would be equal to suicide. They will use every bit of their resources to watch our every step. Can't we just conquer the whole southern continent 3 hours a day? She rubbed her hands together, her eyes sparkled regardless of Michael's statement. We will conquer the southern continent, but I won't rush it. I don't think we can rule an entire continent just because we can use our cultivation power. As a princess, you know more about ruling than me. Yeah, you're right, she took a deep breath, controlling her excitement. It's not that simple. Let's just do what we always do first, recon, he nodded. Why wage a war on a kingdom when you can just control its rulers? Said Michael with an evil grin. Michael wanted to be the shadow ruler of the southern continent by controlling every senate. According to Arya, in most of the kingdoms in the southern continent, the kingdom was ruled by the Senate instead of a king or a queen. The Senate was composed of 10 senators and 2 consuls who were elected by the senators. The 2 consuls had the most power in the Senate. They had control of the army and the treasury, the 2 of the most important bureaus. Arya also mentioned that only nobles could vote and stand as senator candidates. The more he heard about the southern continent, the more it felt like ancient Rome. The arena and the gladiators were already a dead giveaway, yet everything he heard from Arya strengthened his assumption. Ere ye be. We avenue crossed the void line, fair your information. They suddenly heard the voice of Captain Lars. They turned back to see him walking towards them along with a group of his crew. In Lars' eyes, Michael saw a tinge of pity. Gaia didn't look his eyes but the cutlass in his hand. She creased her brows. "What do you plan to do with that cutlass in your hand, Captain?" Lars didn't answer Gaia but looked at the distant sky as everyone saw a gigantic eagle soaring through the sky towards them. The eagle carried a steel cage that had just enough space for 2 people. "Lars, my friend," suddenly a voice reverberated from the sky. Chapter 227. Michael looked up to see the eagle slowly descending from the sky. The steel cage was on top of the lower part of the eagle's body while 2 grown men were riding the eagle by standing above its shoulder. The 2 men were in their mid-30s and wearing a gold-embroidered toga. They reminded Michael of the ancient Roman noblemen. These 2 men weren't radiating zero amount of arch energy but the amount was negligible. If they tried to walk through a defense array, they would definitely trigger the array, however they would be considered as the weakest of the commoners back on the northern continent. Yet here they rode the eagle with a domineering attitude. Caw. The eagle let out a loud ear-piercing cry. It sounded like a raven somehow rather than an eagle. But it landed on the ship, shaking the ship for a few seconds. The eagle then turned its head to stare at Michael and Gaia menacingly. The one wearing a toga with a purple line stepped onto the ship first while the one wearing a white toga with red lines carried a medium-sized chest before placing the chest before Lars. "Trent," Lars signaled the greasy blonde crew member who welcomed Gaia and Michael to the ship when they first onboard Stryker. Until now, the 2 noblemen wearing toga did not even look at Michael or Gaia. Trent licked his lips walking towards the medium-sized chest. His skinny hands slightly trembled approaching the chest. When he opened the chest, his face brightened up due to the glistening gold and gemstones inside the chest. Even Michael's eyes sparkled looking at the rubies, diamonds, gold bricks and various colors of gemstones shining inside the chest. 3 million, as we agreed, the one wearing the toga with purple lines smiled at Lars. The crew behind Lars were looking at the chest full of goodies like starving dogs staring at the barbecue. Michael folded his arms, leaning back on the ship's foresail wooden beam. Gaia saw his face, totally calm and cool like nothing's going on here. Only his eyes were occasionally gawking at the chest full of goodies. "Okay guys, what's the plan here?" Finally, Michael opened his mouth after Trent closed the chest. "Why don't you 2 piggies save us the trouble and get yourselves into the cage?" The one with the red line toga waved off at them without even looking at them in the eyes. However, the one with the purple line toga who also had a bald head turned his gaze at Gaia. His blue eyes scanned Gaia from her head to toe. "I heard cultivating women are way better than our southern ladies but it seems like I heard wrong." He shook his head disappointingly. "That was a big mistake," Michael mumbled as he could already feel a cold killing intent. It wasn't much about what he said but the way he said it. She hated being compared to other girls and he just compared her with northern ladies, a big fucking mistake. Yet she remained silent. "Ye erd the man," Trent shouted at them. Michael saw no fear in Trent's eyes, the fear he saw when he first met him. One didn't need a genius to figure out that the reason for Trent and every crew member's newfound courage is that Michael and Gaia lost their ability to cast spells. "We be sellin' ye daft dumb," Trent laughed along with his crew members. We can see that the calm look on his face began to disturb Lars. After exchanging pleasantries with Lars, the one wearing red lines toga turned his gaze towards Michael and Gaia. "Don't make me drag you into the cage, piggies." The scar running across his face made his warning even more menacing. Michael was still dazed thinking why these southerners looked like Romans of the ancient time back on Earth. He was making connections in his head that he failed to notice the crew members including taking their cutlasses out of their sheaths. "You should know that even without the arch energy we can fuck you up," Gaia cracked her knuckles. Most of the cultivators spend their time cultivating or practicing spell casting, or if they had any specialization like Michael, they would use the time to improve their skills. Most of them wouldn't come to the southern continent, therefore, they didn't have to think about what they would do without arch energy. Besides, 99% of the fighting styles required arch energy, so their combat skills wouldn't be useless in the southern continent. However, Serpent Maga was not one of those fighting styles. Only 4 people in the world could use Serpent Maga: Gaia, Gaia's father, Zanali and Michael. Among them, with the help of the system's mentor function, he was perfecting the fighting style to unlock its maximum deadliness. After 30 days of training, he was at the point where he could survive a fight with Gaia for more than 5 minutes, taking less beating from her and landing several blows to her. The girl got teeth. "I will look forward to opening her up." Michael was surprised. There was no lust in his eyes but something evil. He had seen this evil before. It was the same look a notorious mad scientist who tried to find a cure for a brain tumor back on Earth. The scientist's cause was noble, except he was kidnapping people and doing all kinds of horrible experiments on them until he kidnapped a wealthy person's daughter and ended up getting assassinated by Michael himself. This tog-wearing man had the same look in his eyes as the mad scientist once had. Though unlike on Earth, Michael wasn't disgusted by this look, he felt curious. This time he wanted to kidnap the evil scientist and interrogate him so he could exploit the tog-wearing southerner. Boom. Poch. Poch. Just when Michael was about to really use his serpent maga on these poor crew members, the two Roman-looking guys exploded into a bloody mist. It took them a few seconds to realize what just happened. Pirates. Captain Lars screamed as Michael turned back to see a huge ship leaping out of the water like a whale. Seeing the ship that emerged from the underwater, Michael took a few steps backward in fear. He had seen the ship before, the Flying Dutchman. The ship floating a few hundred meters away from him looked very similar to the Flying Dutchman in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Boom, boom, boom. 3 loud booming sounds reverberated the calm sea. The Eagle was still in shock, but before it could even react, the iron cannonballs fired by the pirate ship turned the Eagle into the third red mist of the day. It's the Silent Reaper. Lars screamed again, rushing to the rudder. Michael and Gaia leaped out of the place where they were standing to avoid being hit by the cannonballs. Boom, boom, boom. Get the cannons ready to fire. Lars shouted, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, God saves us. Please God, I don't want to die." The crew members were running around scared to death while avoiding the cannonballs and exploding wooden structures. "Do you see that ship?" Michael had to shout to overcome the sound of cannonballs exploding. "Yeah, it's hard to miss," Gaia replied. They still didn't use arch energy to save time. They were hiding behind the mainsail wood beam looking at the pirate ship that resembled the Flying Dutchman. The crew members and Lars forgot about them after their clients exploded into a bloody mist. "Wait here," Michael shouted, "where are fuck?" Before she could ask, she saw him running towards the chest rolling on the deck. Lars was turning the ship to avoid getting hit by the Silent Reaper as everything loose on the deck began to roll around. The hull and the seawater clashed to produce waves that soaked everyone and everything wet on the deck. One could doubt that whether it was the seawater or they actually got themselves into a storm, as the booming sound was similar to thunderclaps and the light produced by the cannons in the Silent Reaper resembled flashes of lightning. "Don't." Trent saw Michael's intention to steal the chest. He came yelling at Michael with a cutlass in his hand. The other crew members were busy with keeping the ship afloat as well as cannons ready to fire once they turned the ship sidewards to the Silent Reaper. Despite the ship shaking violently, Michael swiftly turned his body away from the trajectory of Trent's cutlass. Trent lost balance when his sword missed its target. When he was about to stumble forwards, Michael wrapped his hands around his neck, instantly twisting it with all his strength. Crack. Trent's lifeless body was thrown into the sea when Lars turned the ship suddenly. Once again, the chest rolled away from Michael's grasp as he himself almost lost the balance. "That's mine." Lars noticed Michael chasing the chest and yelled while turning the rudder using all his strength. Lars shouted but didn't order the crew members to catch or kill Michael because he knew what he was dealing with here, the infamous cursed ship, the Silent Reaper. He never expected he would run into this particular pirate ship on the day that he was supposed to make one last trade before retiring. Suddenly, they heard an unearthly humming sound as the Silent Reaper stopped firing. "It's going to dive again," some of the crew shouted. Chapter 228. Michael was completely stunned to see a gigantic ship like the Silent Reaper diving in and out of the water like a huge whale. He couldn't help but wonder how the pirates on the Silent Reaper survived the dive without getting thrown into the sea. The resemblance to the Flying Dutchman, the overwhelming fear on Lars' crew members' faces, the way Lars himself trying to get away from the Silent Reaper showed Michael that there's something airy about the ship. However, his full focus was on the chest that contained 3 million worth of goodies for now. As the god himself was bringing down his wrath on them, a ferocious storm surrounded them. In the distance, Michael could vaguely see a dark, devastating tornado coming in their direction. A naval fight in the middle of a storm was not how he expected to spend this day. "It's diving!" Lars screamed, his voice contained nothing but fear. It made Lars completely ignore Michael, who was chasing around the chest full of his retirement fund. "What the fuck?" On the other end of the ship, Gaia was holding a wooden pole to steady herself when she saw the Silent Reaper slowly sinking into the water. What kind of ship could jump in and out of the sea? She thought. "Captain, get us away from that ghost ship." The momentarily pause of not getting attacked by the Silent Reaper made the crew members take a breath. They shouted at Lars to save them. "Got ya." The moment the ship stopped violently shaking, Michael grabbed the chest. "Stop him. That's ours." Boom. Just when some of the crew members were shouting at Michael for grabbing the chest, another loud booming sound reverberated the sea. The ship began to vibrate as soon the vibration turned into violent shakes. Bush. The next moment, the Silent Reaper jumped out of the sea just a couple of meters away from them. The seawater displaced by the Silent Reaper drenched and even threw some of the crew members out of the ship. The Silent Reaper cast a huge dark shadow over the striker. Due to its enormous size, the striker looked so weak and tiny in front of it. The figurehead of a reaper holding a scythe looked down on everyone on the striker as they all lost their courage to fight. In this close, they all knew the Silent Reaper could fire some of its front cannons to completely destroy them without even giving them a chance to escape. Only Michael stared at the Silent Reaper with curiosity and wonder without showing any fear on his face. "This is perfect," he mumbled, staring at the figurehead of the Reaper holding a scythe. The dark grayish sails, the black hull, and its almost 200 feet length made his eyes sparkle. Already in his mind, he started to imagine captaining the Silent Reaper, living a pirate life. He ignored the worn-out-looking hull, the rust-covered cannons poking through the hull, and the ship's old condition itself. All he had in his mind was becoming the captain of the Silent Reaper. The ship instantly stole his heart. "Surrender or die, soon," a deep voice sounded from the Silent Reaper. It felt like the ship itself was talking to them as the crew dropped the cutlasses. They had no courage to fight against the Silent Reaper. Soon after they all dropped their weapons, the Silent Reaper slowly turned sidewards, revealing its 25 broadside cannons that could obliterate the strike in one go. The striker was small for Michael to get a look at the crew of the Silent Reaper. While he was craning his head, a plank was thrown to the striker from the Silent Reaper. Firewall activated. Blocking telepathic attack from the Silent Reaper. Michael suddenly heard the system's warnings inside his head. The warnings made sense. The Lars crew were so quick to give up all their hope and courage, now Michael knew why. Something from the Silent Reaper had terrified them, just like his fear toxin, except the Silent Reaper seemed to be meddling with minds telepathically. Michael quickly turned his gaze away from the ship-top Gaia. There was indeed fear in her eyes, but she didn't look pale or terrified like the rest of the crew. "System, can you block the Silent Reaper from playing with Gaia's mind? Subordinate Gaia has enough mental strength to fight off the telepathic signals coming from the Silent Reaper." "Fuck my luck," Lars mumbled before walking the plant to the Silent Reaper. Although he seemed less affected by the Silent Reaper, he was definitely not Captain Lars that Michael met before. One by one the crew members began to follow Captain Lars. "Let's go," Michael waved at Gaia. "What the fuck just happened? First, they wanted to destroy the ship and now want everyone to surrender? And did you notice how miserable the crew became after that weird voice sounded from the ship?" She rapidly fired questions at Michael. "Come on, let's go." Gaia was slightly surprised to see the excitement on his face. He looked like a kid who's going to his favorite place. "You're awfully excited," she asked, joining the line of the crew walking the plant to the Silent Reaper. "The chest. Inside my space ring," he answered Gaia while walking. "Trouble really follows us, huh? First, those southern jerks wanted to buy us, and now, a freaky-ass ship wants us to get on board." She had to raise her voice a bit because of the thunderclaps. Also, they had to walk carefully as the storm was powerful enough to push them down into the sea from the wood plank they were walking on. "I need to cut this freaking hair." Michael cursed his shoulder-length hair when it became wet and flew across his eyes, blocking his vision. In a battle, if his hair blocked his vision even for a split second, he would die. He would be a laughingstock if he died because of his long hair. "Move faster." Michael almost pushed the one walking in front of him. He wanted to get the view of the Silent Repier's crew because he really wondered whether he would meet Davy Jones himself or not. A few minutes later, Michael finally saw the crew he was waiting for. The remaining crew, including Lars, was surrounded by a group of dirty, greasy pirates who smelled like rotten fish. The crew of the Silent Reaper came in all sizes, including midgets to 7-foot-tall giants. They were all human, unlike Michael anticipated. There was no octopus-faced crew member. The Silent Reaper crew didn't wear any distinctive clothes but ragged, dirty clothes. "I had to say, I'm kinda disappointed," Michael said to himself. Considering the Silent Reaper looked and functioned very similar to the Flying Dutchman, he was kinda expecting to meet a crew resembling the Flying Dutchman's too. Yet, instead of those terrifying crew, he was welcomed by a crew that could be compared to Captain Barbassa's and Jack Sparrow's crews. The Silent Reaper's crew was licking their lips, staring at Gaia. They seemed like starving dogs. Both Michael and Gaia ignored these dirty pirates. They just wanted to see how the situation is going to play out before revealing their secret. "Welcome to the Silent Reaper." Taking his gaze away from the crew, Michael turned his head in the direction of the voice to see a tall, muscular man towards them. He had dark skin as an African male. He stood almost 6'2" feet. This black man had an authoritative feel about him, and he had a scar running across from his left upper eye to his right cheek. One couldn't see a single hair on his clean-shaven head. He had pierced both earlobes. The thigh-sized arms looked like they could crush a man to death, while his torso had defined muscles. He was neither wearing something fancy nor dirty ragged like the rest of the crew, but just a short-sleeved transparent tunic and khaki-color breeches. He was accompanied by 2 cutlasses that hung on each side of his waist. He had the perfect thick voice for his muscular body. His dark eyes scanned everyone on board for a few seconds before they landed on Gaia and Michael. "What do ye pirates want?" Lars interrupted the man's gaze by stepping forward after mustering all his courage to do so. "Look ere, Captain," a fearless one, a bald man standing only 4 feet, laughed at Lars. Soon the rest of the Silent Reaper crew cackled. "What can ye offer, Captain Lars O' the Striker?" the black man asked with an amusing smile on his face. 3 million worth o' pillage, in exchange fair me and me crew's lives." Lars turned his head to look at Michael, who was standing among his crew. Michael smiled. He didn't think Lars actually noticed the chest taken by him. Following Lars' words, every pair of eyes on the ship fell on Michael and Gaia. "Interest in offer and interest in people," the black man said. "Ye took a lass on board, no wonder ye ended to the sky in our sight." The short man had a surprised look on his face. "Ye don't take a lass on board, they be bad luck," another one of the crew members exclaimed. This one had a bald head, a greasy beard, and teeth that were so dirty that it would make even an aged dentist raise his brows. The black man signaled his men to let Michael and Gaia come forward. "No one steals from me." Just when he was walking past Lars, he said in a husky voice. "Hi readers of Ranobes and other sites, if you are wondering why there was no update for some time, it's because I was tested a COVID positive. I had to take bed rest. Always check Web Novel for my announcements, as I explained about my condition and update schedule in Web Novel. However, now I'm 90% recovered thanks to everyone's wishes. He'll start updating regularly as I used to. Again, I'm sorry for not letting you all know about everything earlier." Chapter 229. While the Silent Reaper was engaged in a battle with the Striker, Gibson was snoring regardless of the loud cannon exploding sounds on his tiny little bed that barely had enough space to support his whole body. One could see a couple of empty rum bottles on his hairy chest. His once first body now turned flabby, fat covered most of his muscles. A particularly notable feature was his missing limb. He lost his right leg when he was serving under Her Majesty many years ago. At that time he wouldn't even have imagined a pirate life, yet here he is, sleeping in a pirate ship. Cha. He slapped his own cheek in sleep to find a peanut stuck in his bushy sideburns. The empty rum bottle on his chest reflected a round face with a softly shaped jaw, a straight nose and 2 sleepy brown eyes. His medium-length hair was all over the place as some of the strands were running into his mouth. Boom, boom, boom. What now? Finally Gibson couldn't take any more of violent shakes or the loud booming sound. He picked his body from the bed before fitting the wooden leg to substitute his lack of right leg. "Even a curse couldn't cure the hangover of mine, hee," Gibson chuckled, throwing away his empty rum bottles. He then picked a small leather drinking pouch. "Thank God," he smiled, seeing that there's still some rum left in the pouch. Pouch. On top of his hangover, the shaking ship made walking in a straight line pain in the butt. While he was stumbling forwards, a broken splinter of wood exploded from the hull and stabbed him in his shoulder. One would expect him to scream or at least flinch, but he didn't even notice the 6-inch splinter sticking out of his shoulder. "We are cursed, yet here we are, destroying who knows what," Gibson mumbled, taking a short sip from his leather pouch. None of the crew, including the current Captain Bull, knew the full extent of the curse. The curse stripped away their sense of touch, smell, pain, and touch. On top of that, the curse occasionally made the crew enter a deep slumber that could last from a couple of months to several years, and no crew of the Silent Reaper could leave the ocean. If their feet touched the ground, they would be painfully turned into ashes. He was telling the crew that the curse is also making the Silent Reaper playing with the minds of the enemy crew, but the pirates were too dumb or ignorant to listen to his theory. If the pleasure of getting drunk was stripped away by the curse, he would have taken a boat to some island and killed himself. Other than drinking rum, there was no pleasure in his life. It would be a lie if he said he didn't love the life before the curse. He loved being a pirate, more than being a soldier in the Royal Navy under Her Majesty. After the curse, the previous captain started to pillage every ship he saw, not just for gold but for more information about the curse. He believed someone could tell them how to break the curse. Although it was highly unlikely to find someone who knew about a curse put by a sea folk elder, it was better than just aimlessly roaming the ocean. Surrender or die, here it goes. Gibson halted his steps to take some deep breaths. After this, he wouldn't have time to take a breath because he would be busy interrogating the hostages. Just because he was a soldier before pirates, the pirates gave him the job of interrogating. Somehow they failed to understand the fact that he was a navigator on a Royal Navy ship. For the pirates, everyone on a Royal Navy ship was a soldier. "Pick yourself up, Gibson," Gibson said to himself before taking a long sip of rum. Stumbling through the bunk beds of his fellow pirates, he finally reached the stairs leading to the upper deck. Walking the stairs wasn't as easy as once it was for him when he had 2 human legs. Now the wooden leg made even the simplest thing like climbing the stairs a pain. 20 more to go, Gibson, only 20 more. He looked up at the 20 steps in front of him and sighed. 19, 18, eventually, after 15 whole minutes of heavy breathes and long sips of rum, he finally made it to the upper deck. Gibson saw Captain Bull staring at a young man who seemed very out of place to Gibson. The young man looked cleaner than everyone else. He wore a long gray coat and black breeches. After many years, Gibson saw a clean guy. The young man had the perfect jawline and features that would make any girl's heart beat faster. He was so handsome that he would make every prince Gibson had met pale in comparison. Even with his long coat, Gibson could see the muscles hiding within. His eyes were so focused on the youngster that he failed to notice the girl standing among the hostages. Despite being surrounded by pirates, Gibson saw no fear on the young man's face. He saw only amusement. "Right on time, Gibbs. Yeah, ye be welcome to the 7 seas, O living Gibbs. You 3 sheets to the wind, bastard. It's time ye woke to the sky, ye old fuck." Gibson ignored his crew member's shouts as he saw the young man turn his sharp gaze towards him. Gibson felt like the sea devil himself staring straight into his soul. There was something in the young man's gaze. "Harrace my counteroffer, Captain Bull," Gibson heard the young man speak. "Agree to serve under me or I will kill everyone here." The young man paused for a second before continuing, "One by one until you accept." Everyone including Gibson was stunned. He was surrounded by 60 pirates and one monstrous-looking Captain Bull. "Ha!" It took the pirates a couple of seconds before bursting into laughter. Even normally serious Captain Bull chuckled in amusement after the young man's words. Not only the crew but some of the less affected hostages had a smirk on their faces. "Now that there ye ave a comedian and 3 million worth o' pillage, can ye let us go?" After the laughter died down, Lars opened his mouth. Because of Lars' strong mental power, he was far less affected by the Silent Reaper than the rest of his crew. Captain Bull, however, didn't answer Lars, he just stared at the young man. Gibson limped to the side to lean on a wall to see what's going to happen. Somehow he had a feeling that this young man was not kidding around. "You want to be the captain?" Bull asked as Gibson saw the young man nodded. "Ye're that lads, ye want to be the captain o' our cursed Silent Reaper. Stop wasting my time, Bull. Fall in line along with your crew or I'll kill you first to make a statement." "Ah, you'll kill me?" Bull laughed while the rest of the pirates stared at the young man with cold killing intent in their eyes. "All right, I'll let ye try." Bull took out his 2 cutlasses. The crew quickly cleared the center of the stage for Captain Bull to kill the young man. "Give him a sword," Bull said to the short man, but he saw the young man shake his head walking towards the center of the deck. Every pirate and hostage on the ship stared at Michael like he was the stupidest person they had ever met. By comparing their body alone they could tell that Bull could snap the young man in half. If he had taken the weapon he would have at least had a fighting chance, but now he seemed like dead meat in their eyes. "No need." The young man stood a few meters away from Captain Bull without a weapon in his hand. "What is he doing?" Gibson asked himself looking at the young man. "Are you gonna stand there all day?" Bull was provoked by his words and the careless look on his face. He clenched his 2 cutlasses tightly to leap at the young man. The pirates and the hostages were expecting a gory beatdown when they saw the young man calmly raise his hand. "Zzzzrr." Boom. The next moment, they were stunned beyond words to see a thick bolt of golden lightning shoot out of the young man's hand. In a blink of an eye, the lightning bolt went straight through Captain Bull's head as his head exploded into a red mist. He cast spell. Gibson's body went rigid while many people lost control over their bladders. They were scared shitless. For a long couple of seconds, they just stared at the headless body of Bull wandering around on the deck without uttering a word or moving a muscle. It wasn't a long fight with fancy moves. In fact, the fight didn't even last for more than a couple of seconds. From Bull raising his cutlasses to his head exploring happened so quickly. What shocked everyone more than Captain Bull's death was the lightning bolt shot out from his hand. They wanted to find another explanation except they simply couldn't. How did he cast a spell inside the void line? This was the question that ran inside the minds of many. C.A.P. Words barely escaped from some of the loyal pirates. It had been a long time since the pirates felt fear. While they were about to raise their cutlasses, Gibson heard the young man spoke again. I can break your curse. Chapter 230. With one swift jump, Michael landed on the wooden edge before the ship's rudder. He balanced himself like a professional rope walker. The very next moment, Gibson saw another figure landing on the edge just beside the young man. The girl's black hair beautifully fluttered in the wind while the flashes of lightning revealed her perfect hourglass structure to every single one of them. The girl made the pirates even more terrified because the pirates think that if a girl comes on board a ship, it's bad luck for all of them. They were still in shock when Gibson saw the young man started talking. You may address me Lord Lucifer and her as Dark Queen. The name Dark Queen somewhat felt weird, yet the reason Michael chose the name was that it would be more suitable and badass in the future when he actually has an army of soldiers under his command. Besides, after he marries her, she would become his official queen, the Dark Queen. I know it'll be hard, but anyone who intercepts my speech will die like your Captain Bull, Michael said after sending another bolt of lightning near Bull's bleeding headless corpse. You've all seen a glimpse of what I can do to anyone who stands against me. Now I'll tell you what I can do to those who stand behind me. Gibson's hangover disappeared after he saw what happened to Bull, and now giving his full focus to the young man. I can make you rich and powerful like you've never even imagined. Michael flicked his wrist as the chest he stole from Lars appeared on the deck below him. The light radiated from the goodies inside the chest brightened up the faces of the pirates. This is just a glimpse. I also know what you desperately need now is not pillage but a way to break the curse. What he just said got the interest of the pirates more than the shining chest did. As long as you agree to serve me, you won't be bothered by the curse. Michael reached his hand out at the pirates as a hot wave of air brushed past them. I can feel the hot air, Gibson mumbled, feeling a sensation after more than a decade. Not only Gibson but every single pirate was also dumbstruck by the sensation of feeling hot air on their faces. Just by looking at their faces, Gaia could tell they want this feeling to last forever. Gibson never thought a simple thing such as hot air on his face would make him this happy. This is better than booze, Gibson said to himself. It took everything in him not to speak anything aloud. He was very positive that uttering any word would get him killed. While Gibson was in a daze, he noticed Shorty, the 4-foot pirate, slowly raising his hand. Go ahead. Gaia really didn't want to laugh at Shorty, but it took so much control not to laugh. Can we go to the mainland or step on any land for that matter? Yes, you can, but all of these can happen only if you serve me loyally. I don't have any place for disloyal crew on my ship. Gibson saw a couple of pirates grin. He could tell that they already decided to join this young man's crew. If it was for their captain before Bull, they would have hesitated to jump the crew or even fought the young man for attacking their captain because he had won all their loyalty including Gibson's. Since that captain was long dead and the young man was claiming that he could break the curse, there was nothing to hesitate about. Plus, the 3 million worth of gold, diamonds and gemstones didn't hurt. Now speak your mind, Michael said, folding his hands against his chest. The pirates stared at Michael for a few seconds. Their eyes were full of fear towards Michael. Yet, Shorty stepped forward mustering his courage. If you join your crew, what's our share in pillages? Both Michael and Gaia were surprised by the pirate's question. They were expecting questions related to the curse, yet the short one asked about their share. What's your share under your late Captain Bull? Before the curse, we would share in 80-20 ratios. 80 for Captain, 20 for us. You'll get double under my command. I'm in the short pirate didn't even take a second after hearing Michael's last statement. He just awkwardly knelt down on 2 knees pledging his loyalty. System, Michael willed the system to partially break the curse in his mind. The next moment, Gibson saw a bright light beam coming out of the young man's hand. The light beam reached Shorty as his face began to show a cocktail of emotions. Soon, tears began to roll out of his eyes. I can feel again the air, the smell of the sea. Step aside, Shorty. Gaia waved her hand as Shorty was moved aside by a gust of wind. You have 10 seconds to decide your next move. Michael's voice was cold rather than calm. In a short time, the pirates would be the ones getting the most out of this deal. Therefore, if they hesitated even after he explained everything he could do for them, he would kill every single one of them except Shorty. Yeah, fuck it. Gibson limped towards the young man. His old instincts told him that following the young man would be the best choice he could make in his life. Gibson saw a slight smile energy on the young man's face when he stepped forward. Captain. Lord Lucifer. Following Gibson, every single pirate on the deck awkwardly bent their knees, pledging their loyalty to Michael. As before, the light beam shot out from his hand, but this time, it enveloped all the pirates in a bubble before vanishing from the sight. When the bubble disappeared, the pirates began to cry like little children. They were slapping themselves, pinching themselves as well as tasting the salt water on the deck. It was acceptable in Michael's eyes. After all, they never felt sensations like this in years. He gave them the time to enjoy the moment. Tinkering with the curse did come with a cost, as they lost the Silent Reaper's ability to terrify the hostile crews. According to the system, that was a byproduct of the curse, and by removing the curse partially, Michael also removed that ability. He knew it was a necessary sacrifice to earn their loyalty, so it was worth the trade. Now I have to deal with you guys. Michael turned his gaze towards Lars and his crew members, who were standing still in fear and shock. Some of them even peed in their pants, imagining what might happen to them. Let us go, Lars stuttered in fear. With the ability to cast spells inside the void line, Lars knew these two would be a god and goddess in the southern continent. No matter how powerful the Spartan army was, Lars knew a couple of spells could easily decimate them. Let you go? Ah, Michael chuckled. The pirate stood up with newfound loyalty towards Michael. You fucker wanted to sell us. Gaia's voice was cold. Tell us who your contact was and he'll kill you quickly. Lars' mouth kept opening and closing. To be honest, he only talked with the buyer through the communication stone. The two who came riding an eagle were just the subordinates of the buyer. They never told Lars their names or where they were from. You don't know? Michael could tell that Lars had no idea about the two tog-wearing southerners by looking at his eyes. Michael disappointedly shook his head before nodding at Gaia. Poison grasp, she uttered the words, pointing her finger at Lars and his men as a green mist began to form out from thin air. The green mist soon transformed into itself a giant hand. The giant hand then swooped the group from the floor. Wow, what is this? How can they cast spells? New captain and his girlfriend is awesome. Oh my god, including Gibson, every single pirate was in awe. They were speechless as Lars and his men struggled against the hold of the green giant mist hand. Gaia pointed her fingers at the sky as the green hand ascended from the floor with the men. Inferno, she fired a spark of fire at the green mist. No! Lars and his men screamed. The poison already seeped into their bodies, making them cough out blood. When the fire spark hit the green mist, it instantly caught fire. Soon the green mist exploded, lighting up the night stormy sky. Their blood rained down on the pirates, making the scene horrifying. She demonstrated what she could do to inflict fear in the hearts of the pirates. Michael just stared at the sky where the group exploded. He knew with cultivation power he could do anything in the southern continent, but rather using his 3-hour power to attack the kingdoms, he wanted to forge alliances with the senates. Controlling the senate from the shadows seemed to be the best way to go. I had a fever when I wrote this chapter, so please forgive me if you see any typos or errors. I barely got myself up to write. There might not be a chapter released tomorrow, as my doctor said to take a day off. Chapter 231, Where am I? Michael opened his eyes to be welcomed by a blood-red sky. He was floating in the air, but no matter how hard he tried to wiggle his body, he was unable to. System, he called out for the system, yet there was no response. He couldn't feel the system in his soul anymore. Am I dreaming? He took a deep breath, calming his mind. The last thing he remembers was kissing Gaia goodnight. Boom. Suddenly an ear-piercing vibration reverberated the blood-red sky. Along with the vibrations, he was able to regain control over his body. Still floating in the middle of the sky, he looked around to see nothing but barren land filled with dark smoke. There were no life signs, the sky was blood-red, the atmosphere was dark and gloomy. He felt like he stepped into a post-apocalyptic world. While he was staring at his surroundings, he saw a woman and 2 little children. They looked exhausted beyond words, as the woman seemed to be walking using her last bit of strength. The 2 children in her hand barely had any flesh, they were just skin and bones. As he was watching them, they stumbled down on the ground. He tried to move his body, but he couldn't. The very next moment, the scenery in front of him changed. After the scenery changed, he wasn't floating in the sky above a barren land. On the contrary, he was floating in a place that seemed to be a city. The sky was still blood-red, and although he could see humans walking down on the streets, they weren't much better than the woman he saw earlier. They were all extremely skinny, in their eyes there was no life. They seemed like zombies who had no desire to live anymore. Looking from above, these people resemble ants, as they were obediently walking in a straight line. After staring at the people for a while, he looked at all the buildings, which seemed to be made of red cement. When he looked closer, he saw glimmering runes on the buildings. The more he observed the place, the more he doubted that this was just a dream. He was about to call the system again when he noticed a couple of people walking in the line drop dead in a blink of an eye. He expected the people to react to the people before them dropping dead, yet they walked past the dead bodies as nothing happened. Michael was unable to find a logical explanation for everything he had seen in this weird place. Surprisingly, Michael saw hooded figures covered in blue robes descending from the sky. "Hey!" he shouted at them, yet they didn't seem to hear or notice Michael. The hooded figures landed beside the dead bodies. 2005 dead today so far. Yesterday I had burned 4,000 bodies. Their words made Michael frown. "This doesn't seem very dreamy to me," he mumbled. The two hooded figures then waved their hands as crimson-red flames engulfed the dead bodies on the ground. The scenery changed again as now he was floating in the sky above a large circular stage. The stage was occupied by more hooded figures he saw before, children of various ages and more skinny people. Except for the hooded figures, the others were chained and brought to their knees. "Stealing is forbidden and it's a crime punishable by death." Michael turned his head towards the voice's direction to see a hooded figure holding a long scythe. Before the chained man in front of the hooded figure could react, the scythe cleaved his head right off his shoulders. "Skipping the line is forbidden and it's a crime punishable by death," another voice followed by beheading. "Praying to sun god is forbidden and it's a crime punishable by death. Attempting to cultivate is forbidden and it's a crime punishable by death. Using arch energy is forbidden and it's a crime punishable by death." Michael heard the hooded figures on the stage exclaim before they behead the people regardless of their gender. The hooded figures showed no mercy at all. Some crimes like stealing and skipping the line were hardly punishable by death, yet the hooded figures cleaved their heads off for these pitiful crimes. The scenery changed again and again and again. One time he saw a lifeless airy forest, the other time he saw people fight like animals for a water puddle. He also saw a 7-feet hooded figure drop a nuke in a city. Michael lost count of the sceneries he saw. After everything he had seen, he was sure this world had already turned into hell if it's not already the actual hell, and the hooded figures were the demons. The real question was why and how is he seeing all this? Suddenly everything around him turned dark as someone switched off the lights around him. "This is what's going to happen if you fail to conquer this world, Michael." Suddenly a gentle soothing voice reverberated in the dark space. "Who are you? And where am I?" "What you've seen is the Elon continent in 400 years from your current time." The voice didn't answer Michael's first question but answered the latter. "The future?" Michael was stunned as the voice continued. "The events you saw are just some glimpses of the result of your failure," the voice said. Although Michael wanted to stay calm and think rationally, what was happening to him was beyond rational. "You have the ultimate power in your hand, use it to reshape the world before the world is engulfed by the evil, by ultimate power." He felt like the voice was talking about the system. "The thought of innocents dying in your war to conquer this world is holding you back from achieving your true potential and reaching your goals. After everything I showed you, it's time for you to shed all your hesitations. Be the dark god you meant to be." After the voice spoke these words, the scenery once again changed. "Human, are you all right?" Michael was standing straight up on his bed, sweating bullets. He turned to see Gaia's concerned face. "You were having nightmares," she said, gently wiping the sweat off his face with her nightgown. Instead of telling what just happened, Michael entered the system interface to question it. "System, are you aware of what happened to me now? What are you talking about?" Surprisingly, the system seemed to have zero clues. "Something just took me 400 years into the future and it also knew about you." "What?" The system sounded completely shocked. "The system cannot search the host's mind, something's preventing me." He heard the system after a few moments of silence. "What else is the voice mentioned?" the system asked. Michael sighed before telling everything that happened from the beginning. Since even the system didn't have any idea about what happened to him, he had to discuss this with the system to find some real answers or explanations. "It can't be one of the Omegas." "When the fuck are you going to tell me about the Omegas and you?" "Not yet, host. You're not even strong enough to face the Guardians, let alone Omegas." "If what you told me is true, it is true." He gritted his teeth as the system continued. "You have to focus on taking over this world as it seems to be the crucial step in your journey towards godhood." "Are you telling me that I'm a god in the making?" "Don't get cocky, host. The future is not something set in stone, anything can change the future. For now, we have to focus on your goals." The system then kicked him out to the real world without a warning. "Fuck," he cursed in his mind as Gaia was still wiping off the sweat on his face. "We need to talk." Considering the system was no help to him, he decided to talk with Gaia. The two of them leaned back on the bed frame before Michael began to tell everything he saw. "There's still a chance that what you saw was just a dream, but what you said didn't seem like a dream to me." After listening to Michael in silence, Gaia spoke. "What could be so powerful to show you the future? Some kind of god?" "You're awfully calm about this." Michael couldn't help but comment on her calmness. Even he was slightly freaking out, she seemed to be less affected than he was. "Since you are a freak of nature, everything linked to you is anything but normal. Getting a glimpse of the future is freaky, yet we still have the chance to prevent everything from happening." He nodded to her words. "Whatever dragged you to the future is not something we can understand or comprehend unless it allows us to. My question is, however, who were those hooded figures? The Guardians? Or something else?" Michael removed the warm quilt to leave the bed. He walked towards the windows. Just like his heart, the sea was also not calm. The storm was still ravishing the ocean violently with the company of the heavy downpour and thunderclaps. "Whoever they are, I have a feeling that we'll meet them soon," he said, looking at the dark stormy sky through the window. The flashes of lightning revealed a newly found resolution in his eyes. At this moment, Gaia could tell that something's changed within him. Chapter 232, What are you working on? Gaia entered the captain's cabin to see Michael leaning back on his chair fiddling with nuts and bolts. "I just have to calibrate a few things." He was too focused on the project as he failed to notice Gaia looking at his world over his shoulder. She could see it kinda looked like the grappling hook they were using, but instead of hooks, she saw him place multiple syringes on a gauntlet. The gauntlet was smaller than the grappling hook. "Oh, you're here," Michael finally noticed Gaia. "Give me your hand." He didn't even wait for her as he just took her right hand. With her hand on his hand, Michael grabbed the gauntlet before gently placing it around Gaia's wrist. "It's gonna sting a bit." "What?" "What?" She felt a sharp pain in her wrist. It was like a couple of bees stinging at the same time. She looked at the gauntlet to see the syringes plunging themselves into her wrist before completely disappearing. "Are you gone? Don't move," she was interjected by Michael. She rolled her eyes a bit and looked at him and placed a transparent glass-like sticker on the back of her neck. She expected it to sting as earlier, but she only felt a slight tingling sensation in her brain. "When I cut your hand, think of a healing potion." She frowned, but she ultimately nodded her head. With a gentle smile, he picked the dagger hanging from her slender waist. Carefully, Michael made a cut on her left forearm as she thought of a healing potion as he instructed her to. Suddenly, she felt the syringes inside her right wrist move. "Can you feel something?" "Yes, those needles are moving," as she said. A wide grin emerged on Michael's face. "It's working. When did I become a guinea pig for you?" "A cute little guinea pig," Michael chuckled, pinching both of her soft cheeks. "It's my new invention. I call this APD. Automatic Potion Dispenser." Michael rummaged through the junk on the table to grab another gauntlet. "The name is pretty explanatory. I was able to squeeze in 8 syringes, fill the syringes with whatever potion we need, and whenever we need it, we just have to think about it. APD will inject the potion directly into our bloodstream. The best part is, it's made of junk metal, so no energy radiation." She could tell by his wide grin that he's so proud of his invention. After hearing what he said, it was obvious how useful this could be in a real battle where enemies won't wait until one takes out his potion and uses it. With this, it's almost guaranteed that we'll win the championship tournaments. Gaia's face lit up instantly. She knew in the first couple of rounds, using potions would be forbidden. However, if they used this gadget, the judges would have no idea as it would radiate 0 energy. "It's cheating, but I like it," she revealed an evil grin. Making the device wasn't costly as it only required him to use some common materials. However, what cost him more was the sticker he placed on Gaia's neck. The sticker was an advanced metal that controls the pulses between the drive and the brain. Since his inventor trait was not high enough to build components that manipulate biochemical signals inside the body, he had to buy it from the system. A single sticker cost him 5,000 badass points, and it could only allow 2 kinds of potions to be loaded into the APD. "Ah. Captain. Lord." Suddenly, someone awkwardly knocked on the door. He could tell it's Gibson, who was standing outside by the voice. "What does he want?" "Let's go see." Michael put on the APD beneath the sleeve before leaving the captain's cabin. When he opened the door, he saw Gibson, Shorty, and a few other pirates waiting for them. In their eyes there was fear more than respect. The way he killed Bull was still freaking out the pirates. "Lord Lucifer, we'll reach the Pirates' Cove in an hour," Gibson said. The sky was unusually clear. Nodding at Gibson, Michael walked to the edge of the ship to soak in all the sunlight. After numerous days of heavy downpour, it was a welcome sight to see the sun once again. "I need you to stop drinking." Gibson, looking at the clear sky, Michael said. "I can't have a drunk for a first mate." His words stunned Gibson. "This will help you stop the habit." Michael tossed a slimy purple potion to Gibson. He knew how hard it was for addicts to stop their habit. If it was on Earth, recovering from addiction would take an immense amount of willpower and dedication, but in this world, all Michael has to do is make a potion that would help one get rid of the addiction. It's either drink this, get rid of your addiction and get fucking rich like a king, or end up as a snack for the sharks below. Michael let his words sink into Gibson's mind for a few seconds before offering something that he won't be able to refuse. Plus, he'll get you a new leg, not some wooden artificial stuff, a real leg. Although Michael had no way of making limbs grow again at the current time, he was positive he would get the ability through the system or find a 6-star healer subordinate to do so in the future. Also, he didn't give a shit about others' drinking habits. For all he cared, they could do whatever they want with their gold coins in their free time, but he wanted Gibson to stay clean. Lord Lucifer, you can do that? Gotcha. Michael snickered inside after seeing the excitement in Gibson's voice. Yes, get clean and he'll get you a new leg. The other pirates, including Shorty, also looked excited for their fellow pirate Gibson. Loyalty towards us is the only price you have to pay us. Gaia leaned on the ship's mainsail beam and said. That's the Pirate Cove. Captain Gibson pointed out the big island surrounded by countless ocean boulders. The boulders acted as a natural defense against the ships as they prevented the ships from reaching the island. The only way to get into the island without swimming seemed to be the large docks at the far side of the island. Surrounding waters were filled with small fishing boats and nets. In the distance, a couple of pirate sail ships with skulls and swords for flags docking at the docks. It's good to be back here after all these years, Gibson exclaimed with a burst of joy. Gaia noticed all the pirates were bouncing in joy. Listen up, when you get into the island, do not say anything about what happened to Bull or anything related to me. I'm just a pirate like you and she's my girlfriend. If you blabber anything to anyone, it'll personally end you. For a few moments, the pirates looked dumbstruck, but soon, they all just nodded in agreement. If anyone asked about the curse or Captain Bull lost his life lifting the curse. That's the story. Captain, it'd be hard for them to believe that you two are pirates, Gibson whispered to Michael standing beside him near the rudder. Just say we came from the northern continents, since it was not possible to get dirty like the rest of the pirates. Michael asked Gibson to tell the truth to cover up his real identity. Besides, he would soon reveal himself as the captain of the Silent Reaper to the world. He just wanted to gather more information about this part of the world before making any important steps. Gibson, I also want you to buy everything on the list. Michael handed over a piece of paper to Gibson with a pouch of gold coins. Gibson opened up the paper to see a list of familiar names. They were all items, metals, and things related to the ship itself. The closer his ship got to the docks, the clearer he could see the island. The Pirate Cove was a tropical island with various wooded buildings and occasional watchtowers. Trees such as palm and coconut added a certain charm to the island. What made the island more beautiful was the colorful coral reefs. They were like nature's carpet welcoming them into the island. The TV shows and movies didn't do justice to the beauty of Pirate Cove in Michael's view. This is gonna be fun. The Silent Reaper slowly made its way to the docks under the shocked gazes of little children who were standing on the shore. Its black eerie look gave chills to many citizens of the Pirate Cove. Just by looking at all those fresh fishes caught by the net, Gaia's stomach started to scream for some grilled fish. I assume you're all headed to a tavern. Of course, Captain. Sorry, how do we call you now? Shorty seemed like he cannot wait to step on the shore and get drunk to his throat. For now, I'm David and she's Eli. See you at the Burning Candle, David. Eli. Shorty don't wait for the ship to get docked but jumped into the water outside. The other pirates were slightly afraid of stepping onto the shore, yet Shorty decided to rush towards the shore with no worries. He's excited, Gaia chuckled seeing the little guy swimming like a shark chasing him behind. Get yourself a bath and meet me at the tavern, Michael said to Gibson before leaving him behind. Gibson took a sniff of his shirt and realized the urgency of a bath and a set of new clothes. Chapter 233. After leaving the Silent Reaper at the docks, Michael and Gaia wandered through the sandy roads of Pirate Cove. Everywhere Michael turned, he could see tropical trees, buildings made of nothing but wood, broken fishing boards that were being used to shelter drunken pirates, and little children playing pirates. The island was pretty lively. I am Captain Redbeard, bow before me. If you're Captain Redbeard, I'd be Captain Xianxia. Did you see the scary ship at the docks? It's the Silent Reaper. My grandpa told me stories about it. Who's the captain? While Michael and Gaia were roaming the island, he heard children and grown men gossip about the Silent Reaper. Because the Silent Reaper appeared at the Pirate Cove nearly 3 decades ago, many stories about the ship turned into rumors. Only a handful of elderly citizens in their 70s had more information about the ship, its crew, and the curse. As he was walking, his courage was raised by the light, which streams through the palm and coconut trees lighting up the beauties of the island, and stopped to smell the flowers and examine things, which he never thought existed. Cutlasses forged using the finest steel. Rum barrels wholesale. High-quality tobacco and sugar. Under the shade of tropical trees, Merchants were shouting loudly to attract the attention of newly arrived pirates. Not a single food stall, Gaia sighed after searching the line of merchant stalls for something to eat. There's no clothing store either, Michael said. He wanted to change his clothes to blend with the natives, yet wherever he looked, he couldn't find a clothing store or a place where he could buy some piratey clothes. Let's go to the tavern, Imbeat. Gaia was sweating as she was inside an oven. The lack of arch energy in the atmosphere took a toll on her body. To find the tavern, Michael didn't have to ask for direction, he only needed to follow the grown men. Eventually, after following some men, they reached their destination. The Burning Candle. Michael read the signboard hanging above an old wooden door. From the outside it looked lively, folksy, and enchanting. Softwood and well-crafted wooden beams make up most of the building's outer structure. It was near impossible to see through the dirty windows, but the sounds of dancing and singing from within could be felt outside. As they entered the tavern through the well-crafted wooden door, they were welcomed by amazing but unknown scents and laughing voices. The bartender, who was a middle-aged woman, was a little preoccupied with customers but still managed to welcome them with a wink. It was as engaging inside as it was on the outside. Several walls supported the upper floor and the large candles attached to them. The walls were loaded with hundreds of small ship parts, all signed and most likely donated by fellow pirates. The tavern itself was packed. Pirates seemed to be the primary clientele here, which often led to exciting evenings. Several long tables were occupied by separate groups of pirates, all enjoying themselves, but they kept to themselves. Among the tables were Michael's crew, who seemed to be losing their consciousness due to the rum they were chugging non-stop. Some were even dancing on the table while others were cheering from them by clapping and yelling. The other, smaller tables were also occupied by people who were playing games and, judging by their laughter, were either telling jokes or great, perhaps embarrassing tales. Even most of the stools at the bar were occupied, though nobody seemed to mind more company. Michael did hear tales about this tavern back on the ship. Supposedly it was famous for something, but he couldn't remember what for. Though judging by the music and how many people were dancing, it must be the live band who just started playing. There are some empty chairs. Gaia pointed at the few empty chairs at the far end of the room as they walked towards the table to prepare for what would undoubtedly be a great morning. In the heat of the moment, most of Michael's crew completely failed to notice him until Shorty whispered something into their ears. They all gave a quick glance at Michael before resuming what they were doing. Few of the waitresses were still busy serving the other pirates. Michael and Gaia were not in a rush, so they just waited for one of the waitresses to come to them. How long are we gonna stay on this island? I have to make a few upgrades to our ship. Few days tops, I think. She's not a whore, Holman, let her go. The bartender's shout drew Michael's attention towards a waitress near Shorty's table. The waitress was trying to get herself free from the hold of a scar-faced pirate. She's a big girl, she can decide what she's gonna be tonight. The scar-faced pirate took out a pouch, pouring out gold coins on the table. By the look on the other pirates' faces, Michael could see that they were fortunate enough to plunder a rich merchant ship or two. Besides, among all the people in the tavern, these guys had shinier cutlasses and wore cleaner clothes. Look for someone else, Holman. The waitress freed herself from his grab by swatting his hand away. The golden-hair waitress quickly rushed back into the kitchen, leaving Holman and his crew behind. This place hasn't changed a bit. Suddenly Michael heard a familiar voice as he turned to see Gibson walking towards them. Compared to the man he met before, Gibson looked like a new person. It's really a wonder how a bath and a new set of clothes could do to a man. Gibson scratched the back of his head in embarrassment. Michael gestured at him to pull up the empty chair to their table. They'll get us something. Gaia left the table, leaving Gibson and Michael behind. Gibson would have offered to get something, but she didn't give him any time to offer his aid. Tell me about yourself, Gibson. Michael noticed his hands were shaking as well as his eyes were checking the rum served by the waitresses. It was obvious he wanted a drink. Michael took his attention from the booze with the question. Well, I was serving under Her Majesty before losing my leg and becoming a pirate. Her Majesty? The Empress of our continent. The Our continent was the largest in this world. It was larger than Elon and Azer continent combined. He knew little to nothing about our continent except the fact that he had unfinished business to take care of in our. On a scale of 1 to 10, how powerful is our continent? 20 or even 30, Cap. David Gibson almost said his real name but quickly corrected himself. The scholars say there are multiple magical ley lines under the land of Ar. Hence, everyone in every kingdom are fucking powerful. Also, those snobby bastards are ridiculously rich. Seems like my kind of place. Well, go there in the future. Gibson was about to protest this idea of them visiting our continent when his eyes widened in shock. He noticed Holman checking out Eli, the girl who killed a group of pirates like they were nothing. It took Michael a second to notice the change in Gibson's eyes. Gibson slowly turned his gaze away from Holman to Lucifer, but unlike he expected, the young man remained calm. Although the mask Gaia wore significantly reduced her beauty, her perfect hourglass structure, and her grace made her stand out in this crowd, especially when the tavern was lacking in ladies. Michael knew he can neither stop every man who checks out Gaia nor cleanse the world of perverts. Therefore he remained calm, as it wasn't worth his time to start a fight just because he's staring at Gaia from her top to bottom. Right at the moment, Michael noticed another set of eyes staring at Holman and Gaia. The figure was wearing a hood to cover his face. He wore what a typical pirate would wear, except his boots looked military. Now that the figure attracted Michael's attention, he noticed the figure was sitting in front of glass bottles on the table before the bartender. For a normal person, it would raise no flags, but for a highly trained assassin like Michael, it said many things about the figure. Gibson heaved a sigh of relief when Gaia left the bar counter without giving Holman a chance to mess with her. The tavern was neutral ground and a place under the protection of the three great pirate captains. Fighting inside the tavern was forbidden. If anyone tried to start a fight, they would become the target of three captains. The last thing Gibson wanted was Lucifer to kill the three pirate captains and mess with the equilibrium of the pirate world. The figure quickly turned his gaze away from Holman as he pretended to take a sip from his mug, but Michael saw him using the glass bottles in front of him to monitor everything around him. Using reflective surfaces to monitor the area was a classic trick used by spies and assassins. Michael couldn't help but wonder, what is a spy or an assassin doing in a tavern like this? Gaia placed a tray with 3 mugs filled with rum and 3 grilled salmon on the table before sitting beside Michael. "It'd be weird if I ask for water to drink in this place, so just pretend to drink the rum," she said as her eyes looked at Gibson. "Pretend, got it, Eli?" Gibson mumbled as he reached out to touch the grilled salmon because he thought one of the 3 plates of fish was his. Plop. When his hand were about to touch the fish, he was swatted away by Gaia. "Don't even think about it," Gibson saw Lucifer chuckle while Eli began to dig into the grilled fishes. "Fuck. It's bad, yet I can't stop eating," she said, cleaning the fish to its bones. While Gaia was stuffing her belly, Michael was calmly looking around the tavern, listening to all the conversations going around him. "Who the fuck gave you this?" Yet again Michael heard Holman's voice. This time, Holman's shout silenced the entire tavern. Every pair of eyes were on Holman as he trembled in anger. It was him. The waitress pointed her hand at none other than Michael himself. Michael was taken aback by surprise by the waitress' words. Everyone in the tavern, including Gibson and Gaia, stared at Michael. "You." Holman gave a kick to the table in front of him as the table violently clashed with the wall. The sounds of plates and mugs scattering on the floor could be heard throughout the tavern. Chapter 234. Michael was pretty confused for a moment, except when he saw the hooded figure staring at both him and Holman. He began to doubt that this might be the hooded figure's handiwork. "He's good," Michael couldn't help praising the hooded figure. Although he kept his eyes on him, the hooded figure still somehow managed to orchestrate something to make Holman pissed off at him. What was on the piece of paper Holman's holding was still a mystery for him, yet it was enough to make Holman and his crew very angry. "Ah shit, here we go again." Gaia rolled her eyes. She was too focused on filling her belly that she failed to notice the hooded figure. "Cool your pants, Holman, fighting is not allowed here," the bartender lady yet again shouted at Holman. It somewhat slowed down Holman's walking pace towards Michael, but it didn't evaporate the anger in his eyes, not at all. Meanwhile, everyone in the tavern seemed extremely excited to see some action, including Michael's own crew. Unlike the rest of the pirates, his crew knew the result of the upcoming fight, yet they wanted to see some fancy magic again. "Oh, this is gonna be good. Who is that guy? I've never seen him before. Look at the way he dressed. He might be someone from the northern continent. Who cares where he's from? Let's enjoy the show. Go get him, Holman. Yeah, fuck him up." The pirates were drunk. They wanted to have some fun besides drinking, and what was happening right in front of them began to quench their thirst for blood and chaos. "You and me outside. The fish is tasteless anyways." She wiped her mouth with a white cloth as Gibson just stared at her, stunned because there was nothing but fish skeletons on her plate. She almost licked the plates clean, yet she seemed so disappointed. Her appetite really did shock Gibson. "David, let me go talk to him," Gibson whispered to Michael, who was still leaning back on his chair as nothing happened. "I like where's this going?" Michael took a glance at the hooded figure sitting at the bar counter before standing up. He brushed off some of the dust on his dress as Gaia and Gibson stood up to follow him behind. In a couple of minutes, the whole lively tavern became empty as everyone went outside to see the fight. Even the bartender quickly cleaned the glasses to get outside. Is it too early to show us who we really are? Gaia asked while walking behind him towards the door. Way too early. When Michael opened the door, he was welcomed by a large crowd consisting of children, pirates, ladies, and surprisingly a couple of dogs. The crowd was standing in a circle. In the center of the circle was Holman. Michael immediately got all the attention when he stepped outside. I don't know who set you up, but I'm gonna find out. Holman removed his shirt, showing his scar-filled torso. He was flexing his muscles, kicking the sandy mud on the ground and snarling his teeth at Michael. All of his gestures really made Michael wonder what the hell was on that piece of paper that made Holman so mad. Michael stared at the crowd, searching for the hooded figure. It took Michael a couple of seconds to find the figure standing on a balcony of the building next to the tavern. The balcony had drying clothes that helped the hooded figure hide behind. I don't know what's on the paper, but I had nothing to do with it, Michael calmly said while the crowd opened up to make way for him to the center of the circle. Let me be the judge of it. Holman, however, did not listen to Michael. He seemed like he wouldn't back off without a fight. 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 The pirates lost their patience as they began to chant the word fight over and over again. Right at the moment, Michael was standing just a couple of meters away from Holman. Gibson and Gaia were standing right behind Michael while Michael's crew stared at the scene with a rum bottle in their hands. Who wants to bet? Shorty shouted at the people, taking out a pouch of coins. Place your bets and win 5 times the coins. Shorty used the pirate's drunk status to his advantage. Hell yeah, 50 coins on Holman, 100 on Holman, 5 times you bastards. Take out your coins and be a man. Shorty riled up the pirates to bet more. Shorty picked up one of his fellow pirates' hat to collect all the coins along with the bidder's name. He was surprisingly quick to get coins from almost everyone except a couple of dogs in the crowd. After collecting the coins, Gaia saw Shorty tug her sleeves. Can you tell Cap to take a few punches before finishing him off? You are one little fucker, Gaia chuckled, seeing Shorty's courage and stupidity. He really surprised her by asking her to ask Michael to take a few punches just because Shorty wants more people to bet on Holman. He may be a little crazy, but Gaia liked his quick wits and courage. Well, split the coins 50-50, really? I mean, yeah, sure. Shorty wanted to keep everything to himself, but what Gaia said freaked him out, yet he had to agree with her. He was not that stupid to argue with a woman who could kill him using her pinky. Take a few hits. Shorty saw Gaia place her hand on her ear, whispering something. Shorty then noticed Lucifer turn his head for a second and nod. Alright, are we doing this or what? Michael asked Holman, who was still flexing his muscles to attract the ladies in the crowd. We're doing it. Holman finally stopped flexing his muscles after hearing Michael's words. After reaching 89% mastery over the fighting technique Gaia taught him, he could predict almost every possible move Holman would make in the next few seconds. If Michael wanted to, he could knock out or kill Holman in just a kick to his neck. However, he decided to take a few punches from Holman, not because Gaia asked him to, but because he wanted to see how strong are these people compared to those in the northern continent. Since they were unable to use arch energy or any kind of energy, he wanted to see if they were blessed with some other powers such as strong bodies. Holman rushed at Michael, slightly covering his face like a boxer. He was obviously expecting Michael to throw a punch, but unlike he expected, Michael just stood there. Because he never put up his guard, Holman quickly threw a punch at Michael's face. Thump. The very moment Holman's fist connected with Michael's face, it produced a thopping sound as the force of the punch pushed back Michael several steps backward. At the same time, the APD kicked in, injecting the healing potion into his bloodstream. Michael was stunned by the punch. It felt like someone hitting him with a sledgehammer using all their might. The force behind the punch gave Michael a piece of valuable information. The Southerners definitely blessed with more raw power compared to the people of northern continents. This meant that although they lacked the ability to cultivate, they were not as vulnerable as Michael thought. In other words, Holman had the strength of a body refining stage cultivator. The pain he felt quickly disappeared thanks to the APD, yet a small trickle of blood flowed out of the corner of his lips. Michael spat the blood as a small smile emerged on his face. Who taught you to throw a punch? Your grandma? Oh, the crowd laughed, which made Holman more furious as he rushed at Michael again to close the gap between them. Thump, thump. This time Holman punched Michael in the jaw with his right hand and landed a blow to his left rib cage using his left hand. Yet again, Michael felt an excruciating pain for a second before the APD injected the healing potion into his bloodstream. I'll bet 200 more on Holman. 400 on Holman. The return has gone up, 10 times the coins, people, 10 times. Shorty kept shouting while the pirates stupidly fell for his trick. Soon they started to pour out the gold coins excitedly. Meanwhile, Michael continued to take a few punches to fully comprehend the extent of Holman's raw strength and stamina. "Why aren't you going down?" Holman couldn't believe he was smiling even after receiving his punches. He definitely felt the youngster's rib broken by one of his punches, yet he showed no expression of pain on his face. "I'll now show you how to throw a punch." Michael cracked his knuckles. However, before taking a step towards Holman, he turned back to throw a glance at the hooded figure standing on the balcony. Holman rushed at him again to finish him off while he was staring at somewhere else. As Holman threw the punch aiming straight at Michael's nose, he swiftly evaded the fist. The next second, Michael uppercut him in the jaw using just enough force to knock him out. Considering he gauged Holman's strength, he put enough arch energy to give him the power to knock him down. Ooh, what the? The moment Michael's fist met Holman's jaw, he was immediately knocked out by the force. His body hit the sand, producing a thud sound as the onlookers were made speechless. "Get up." Gibson and the crew were yet again stunned by his display of strength. They kinda expected him to use some magic spells, but they never imagined him to knock Holman out in a single punch. "That's how you throw a punch, ding. Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 300 badass points, ding. Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 500 badass points, ding. Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 300 badass points, ding. Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 600 badass points, sweet. Michael grinned. When he killed Captain Lars and his men, he never received experience points. Considering they were not cultivators, it didn't surprise him, he was only kinda disappointed. However, now after receiving almost 3,000 badass points just by knocking out Holman, he began to feel the excitement rising inside him. Chapter 235, Is He Dead? It can't be. Hey, get your ass up. Fuck me, I just placed 500 coins on him. My coins? Stand up. The pirates began to splash whatever booze was in their hand on Holman's unconscious body, except no matter what they threw at Holman, he wasn't waking up. Get him. Suddenly, one of Holman's friends yelled orders at the others, pointing his finger at Michael. There were a total of 7 men in their early 30s who rushed at Michael to avenge Holman. "See, keep your mouth shut." Just when Gibson was about to call him captain and ruin their disguises, Gaia elbowed Gibson in the ribcage to shut him up. She then quickly gave a glance at the rest of the crew to stay still. 6 of Holman's friends surrounded Michael while one knelt down to check on Holman. 7 versus 1, the odds are against you boys, said Michael calmly. You stupid? We're gonna mop the floor with you. Let's teach him a lesson. Holman's friends taunted Michael. Considering they were pretty drunk, they seemed to forget how he knocked out their friend Holman with a single punch. Just looking at their footwork and hand movements told him that they don't know any special fighting technique. Let's do this. Michael just raised his finger to call them up as 2 of Holman's friends rushed at him from the front while one moved from Michael's behind. The distance between the 2 coming from the front was approximately 4 meters while the one trying to attack him from behind was only 2 meters. Therefore, he had to deal with the closest one before dealing with the others. When a fist came closer to him, he just stepped forward and then sideways as the guy lost his balance due to missing the punch. Before he could stumble down, Michael kicked his right knee, instantly breaking it. Ah! He screamed in agony, dropping to the ground. However, he did not give the guy any time as Michael grabbed his neck before sending a knee to the side of the guy's face, knocking him out instantly. Plus, one could hear a jaw-breaking sound when Michael's knee hit his face. After dropping one guy to the ground, the 2 who were rushing at him from the front halted their steps in shock because everything happened so fast as many weren't even completely sure of what just happened. Although the 2 halted their steps, Michael did not stop as he dashed at him as fast as he could without using any arch energy. Even without lightning dash, the training he underwent made him extremely agile, strong, and fast. The booze slowed down the 2 guys' reflection speed. Wasting no time, he elbowed one guy on the side of his face. The jaw was separated by the elbow as he went down without a scream. The very next moment he twisted his body, swinging his right leg. The side whip kick instantly knocked the other guy, producing a short thud sound. At this time, the rest of Holman's friends began to rush at Michael from his front, left and right. With a swift kick to the gut, he sent the guy coming from the front stumbling back. Then he twisted his body, sending a fist into the guy's face. Michael felt his knuckles breaking the guy's nose. The blood splashed across the ice as well as stained Michael's fist. The last guy suddenly started to walk backward in fear because he was the last one standing. The one who was checking on Holman already dragged Holman out of the way from the fight. Even after being shaken violently, Holman still did not recover his consciousness. "I told you the odds are against you," Michael said, kicking the guy who he sent stumbling backward with a kick to the gut before finally knocking him out. "Fuck. You come here," the last guy screamed at the one who was pretending to check on Holman. One could see that the guy was freaked out seeing his friends getting knocked out one by one. This time, Michael did not rush at him but just picked up a half-drunk rum bottle from the ground. The crowd was stunned at the scene as they now stared at Michael like he was some kind of freak. They watched Michael walk towards the last guy with the bottle in his hand. "You." The guy mumbled as he tried to unsheath his cutlass. Michael grabbed the guy's hand, stopping him from reaching his sword. "Next time, run away, crack." Michael smashed the bottle in the guy's head with enough force to knock him down. Out of the 7 men, 6 were knocked out. He turned his gaze towards the last man who was on the ground beside Holman. "Tell your friends this ends right here. If they try anything silly, that'd be the last thing they do." After warning the guy, he just turned around, walking towards Gaia and Gibson. "Put this in your ear." He placed an earpiece in Gibson's hand, whispering to put it into his ear. Among the chaos, no one noticed the little exchange between Michael and Gibson. The onlookers were too focused on losing their money to Shorty. After Michael left the area, Shorty did not linger around as he knew the pirates would rob him blind if he stayed. Shorty gathered his crew before running behind Gibson. After the fight, Michael and Gaia walked into a dark alley near the tavern. Michael had to lose the crowd as some people who lost coins because of him might try to start another fight. As much as he could, he wanted to stay off the grid without showing any of his powers before he could get a complete idea about this part of the world. Getting into regular fights would ruin his plan. "Where are we going?" Gaia asked. The place was dark, nothing but trash to accompany them in the alley. The tall buildings on either side prevented much of the sunlight from lighting the alley, hence the darkness. "You're gonna come down or keep following us?" Michael stopped walking and shouted, looking at the top of the wooden building beside him. Gaia was confused, but she soon saw movements up on the roof. Just a few seconds after Michael's shout, the hooded figure leaped down from the top of the building and landed in front of them comfortably. "Who the fuck is he?" Gaia asked Michael while he just stood there calmly, waiting for the hooded figure to start speaking. "You made me," the hooded figure spoke with a thick accent. He was standing at least 6 feet 5 inches with enough muscles to compete in a bodybuilding competition back on Earth. Yet he seemed so agile. "I noticed. It'd be nice if you tell me why did you choose me and what do you want? Call it a gut feeling. In putting up together a team and after what I saw, I'd say my gut feeling was right. It was you who set up that Holman guy, wasn't it?" Gaia connected the dots as the hooded figure's silence confirmed her theory. "Team for doing what?" "A simple retrieval. There are risks, but you'll 3 million in gold before and 3 million after the job's done. 6 million for a simple retrieving. I'm interested." He didn't believe someone would pay 6 million for a simple retrieving job. However, he wanted to learn more about this part of the world and its people. Doing this job would not only make him rich but also help him gather more information. Besides, he wanted to know who's willing to pour out that many coins and for what. Even if the team just consisted of 4 people and the same payday for everyone, it would cost the one running the operation 24 million. If someone was willing to pay 24 million, he knew what he wanted to be retrieved must be worth it. "Meet me at the docks in 8 hours, we'll be headed to Giselle." The moment the hooded figure mentioned the name Giselle, Michael's brows arched up. Kingdom Giselle was his destination. It was where the source of Nightcrawler's magic radiation hiding artifact. He paid the system a hefty sum to get the location. He even left the Demon Soul Stone back at the Abyssal to get his hands on the artifact before anyone else could. Now it seemed like someone's already putting together a team to get the artifact. Before Michael could ask any further questions, the hooded figure used a grappling hook similar to Michael's to reach the rooftop and disappear. The design of the grappling hook was different from Michael's Mark III, yet he was surprised by the device. According to Arya, the Southerners always compensated for the lack of arch energy with technology and science. Now that he saw the hooded figure use such a device, he began to form an idea about this part of the world. "Giselle? It's where we're going. Somehow I can't believe it's just a coincidence. Either way, we'll see this through," said Michael. "Where do you want me?" "Get to Gibson and follow us discreetly." In doing this alone, he gave a gentle pat on her shoulder before leaving the alley. Since they didn't want the hooded figure to know the Silent Reaper belonged to them, they had to be cautious. They had to keep their cards close to their chest without revealing them because they could be used to their advantage if the hooded figure tried to double-cross them after the job was done. Chapter 236. Dusk came sooner than expected. The last of the sun's rays cast behind soft gray clouds. The sandy streets of Pirate Cove took on the look of an old photograph, every familiar thing a shade of gray. Slowly the view faded to blackness and the night began, slowly letting the stars in the sky shine. The sound of waves hitting the sea boulders as well as the birds chirping radiated a soothing effect to everyone on the island. Right at the moment, Michael stood on the docks looking at the sun disappearing into the horizon. He felt peaceful as the time flew by without his notice. Soon when the light of the sun completely vanished, a merchant ship sailed towards him to dock at the docks. "Hop in." After the ship stopped, Michael saw a 7 feet gigantic man throw him a plank to get on board the ship. The moment he stepped on the upper deck, he noticed a handful of crew running around the deck. "Welcome on board, new guy." Michael had to look up to see his face. He had ruffled short-length hair, well-defined muscles like a bodybuilder. He only wore brown breeches as well as black boots, nothing to cover his upper body. On his behind, Michael noticed a huge warhammer hanging on. Coupled with his dark skin, the man could give a heart attack to any soft-hearted person. Regardless of his terrifying body, he welcomed Michael with a genuine smile on his face. He also reached out for a handshake. "How are you doing?" Michael shook his hand with a smile. "Hey gang, move your asses over here, the new guy's here," he shouted with his thick voice. Soon after his shout, a group of people walked out from the captain's cabin. He saw a young short golden-haired girl with a crossbow, a brown-haired youngster with a rapier hanging on his waist, a short person with a hood covering his face, and finally, a youngster with big round glasses on his face. Michael looked around to see the hooded figure he met in the alley, but he wasn't with the group in front of him. "So what's your specialty?" the golden-haired girl asked. She was an average-looking girl, fair skin, square jaws, hazel eyes. The only unique thing about her was the tattoo on her neck, a tattoo of a raven. Unlike the man who welcomed Michael, there was no friendly smile on her face. She seemed as she was pissed off at someone. "Depends," he just shrugged. "That ray of sunshine is Marcella." The big man began to introduce them one by one to Michael. "He calls himself Brownie," he pointed at the brown-haired youngster. "I think it's something to do with his brown hair," the big man whispered with a chuckle. After introducing Marcella and Brownie, the big man pointed his finger at the short hooded figure. "That's Jesse," the big man said as Jesse waved his hand. "You might want to hide your things from him," the big man whispered again before pointing his finger at the glasses-wearing youngster. "I'm Jonah, welcome." "Welcome aboard." Before the big guy could, the youngster introduced himself with an awkward smile. "You can call me Logan." Logan again reached out for a handshake. "David." Once again Michael shook his hand. "You got quite a grip, David." Logan gave a friendly pat on Michael's back. "I don't see any peace on you, David. Where we are going you'll need something," Marcella said. "Let's bring him up to speed." Michael turned his head towards the captain's cabin to see a bald muscular man with various tattoos covering his neck walking towards him. Judging by the height and the device strapped around his wrist, he knew this guy is the hooded figure he met earlier. The man had tan skin, a round face with small lively eyes. He was not as tall as Logan but not short as Jesse either. "Follow me." "That's Ross." In case you didn't know, they all followed Ross behind into the captain's cabin. When they opened the door, Michael saw another man wearing full leather armor standing behind a round oak table. The armor looked sturdy. The man was an inch taller than Ross, neatly combed his short black hair to the side. On his back, Michael saw a shiny silver round shield as well as a long sword hanging on his waist. After everyone entered the room, Ross closed the room while the man tossed a pay cube towards Michael. "Your advance is in the pay cube. You can cash in any of the banks in Southern Continent." "Alright, I assume you're all acquainted, so let's start the briefing." "What happened to Rowan?" "And we don't know anything about this guy." Marcella's words slightly annoyed Michael but he let Ross handle her. "Rowan went to the island with the recon team and the less we know about each other is best." "Quit whining, Marcella. David seems capable to me." Logan still had a smile plastered across his face yet he sounded like he doesn't like Marcella very much. In Michael's eyes, the two of them were polar opposites. Logan seemed like a nice friendly guy while Marcella seemed like a typical cold-hearted bitch. "David, you know where we are going exactly?" the man in armor asked Michael. "Ross said we're going to the Giselle Kingdom for a simple retrieval job. But I know it might not be that simple, considering the payday. So bring me up to speed." The man nodded and continued, placing his finger on the map on the table. Michael saw he was pointing at a small island near the Kingdom Giselle. Harford Isle, now known as the Zombie Island. Michael was genuinely surprised by the man's words. "You call them Netherals," Ross said. It was obvious Ross gathered information about him at the tavern through one of his crew members. However, by the look of Ross, it was evident that the crew members kept their mouths shut about Michael using arch energy inside the void line. "You dealt with them before?" The man asked. Yeah, killed a few. You're okay with venturing into an island filled with fucking undead because you killed a few, Jesse? The hooded figure opened his mouth for the first time. He had the voice of a teenager. If Michael had to guess, he would say Jesse is 18 or 19 years old. As some of you may know, the annual hunting of the undead starts 2 days from now. Well, enter the island as hunters, reach the center of the island, get what we need and get the hell out of there. This is the short version of the plan. The longer version is, the island is divided into 3 circles. The outer circle has fewer undead creatures, hence less dangerous. The deeper we move forward towards the center of the island, the dangerous it'd be. After we get through the outer circle, well, meet the recon team here. Ross pointed at the river on the map. The recon team went there with professional builders. If everything went according to the plan, there'd be a ship waiting for us. How did the recon team enter the island before the hunting season begins? Logan asked, looking at Ross and the man in armor. Let's just say my employer called in some favors, said the man in the armor. Moving on. After we get on the boat, we'll travel straight to the center of the island where we believe the undead are building a temple. Except for Marcella and the man in armor, everyone else was stunned by Ross' words. Back in Abyssal, Delar was using rituals and a mysterious book to control the Netherals to do his bidding. If what Ross said was correct, someone on this island or something was controlling the Netherals just like Delar. Undead building a temple? Are you kidding us right now? The last time I heard, undead can't think for themselves. Logan threw his hands in the air, refusing to believe Ross' words. The normal undead can't, but the alphas can, Marcella said as Ross and the man in armor nodded. Alphas? Michael asked as he wanted to know more about the alphas that Marcella was talking about. New breed of undead. We believe something in the island is mutating the undead. The alphas are the completely mutated ones. Ross was intercepted by the man in armor when he was going to finish his sentence. As for what's mutating the undead, it's no one's concern. The others might have no idea, but Michael knew what might be mutating them, the same artifact he's looking for. What about the terrain of the island? Logan asked. The island is a rainforest. Hope you've all brought umbrellas, people, Ross joked. Everyone looked gloomy except Michael. The rainforest would give him the advantage to double-cross them and disappear after getting his hands on the artifact. Plus, he firmly believed that most of these people would die before reaching the artifact because he already injected himself with the vaccine for Netheral Bite. He had to buy a few herbs from the system, but with the help of his alchemy knowledge and ample amount of Netheral samples, he was able to make the vaccine. Rain and forest, the 2 things I hate the most. Logan rubbed his temples. If you need any last-minute supply or a weapon, go get them now. Well, leave the docks in 1 hour. Michael was the first to leave the room after Ross' words. He had to retrieve the Doombringer and the Mark III grappling hook from his space ring without anyone noticing. Chapter 237, I thought you were a sword kinda guy. When Michael stepped onto the upper deck, Logan came to him with a surprised look on his face. His Doombringer was majestically hanging on his behind, gently reflecting the moonlight. It looks heavy. Logan's eyes were sparkling looking at the Doombringer. Michael could tell Logan's craving to hold the warhammer in his hand. It is. Michael took the Doombringer from his behind and twisted the handle stylishly. Because he was not using any arch energy, the weight of the Doombringer made his biceps flex out. After his intense training, his body became toned and each muscle in his body had a definite definition. Can I hold it? Logan looked like a big 7-foot baby staring at a candy. Sure. Michael chuckled as he handed over the Doombringer to Logan. The big Logan was excitedly smiling, but when he grabbed the handle of Doombringer, his smile disappeared. Dang it, it's so freaking heavy. Michael was slightly surprised to see a muscle mountain like Logan struggling to lift the Doombringer without using all of his strength. The weight training plus the serpent-style fighting technique changed his body from the molecular level, making him stronger and faster than most people. This was the reason why Gaia was able to break wood logs like they were eggshells. She was damn strong. Now that he had undergone the training with the help of the system, he was stronger and faster than Gaia herself and on a different level compared to anyone in the southern continent. You're stronger than you look, David, Logan said, putting down the Doombringer on the floor by its head. Work on your weightlifting, big boy. Michael gave a friendly pat on Logan's shoulder with a chuckle. Alright guys, we're leaving. Ross stood at the helm, preparing to leave the docks. After hearing his shout, the ship's crew began to unravel the sails. The ship slowly started to move as they all felt a sudden jerk. Michael walked over to the edge of the ship, leaned on the edge, looking at the starry night above the peaceful ocean. So what do you think about the team, David? Logan leaned on the wooden railing beside him. No clue. What's your take? You know what, I'm glad you're here because you're the most normal person on the ship. Michael looked over his shoulder back at the team and couldn't help but agree with Logan. Brownie was muttering something under his breath while Jesse, the hooded figure checking the crates lined up near the mainsail pole. On the far end of the ship, Jonah appeared to be occupied with the Starry Night. Although Marcella seemed normal, Michael knew she would be the last person to talk to in the entire ship. Logan was dead wrong about him being normal, but compared to the others, he was the friendliest and normal-looking person on the ship. Ross is kind of the team captain here. Marcella is our tracker, Jesse is the thief. I don't know how a thief could help with our mission. I heard Brownie is some kind of undead expert, and Jonah, I have no idea why we are bringing him along with us. Michael took a mental note in his mind. If he wanted to double-cross them at the end, he needed to know everything there is to know about them. How do you know all this? He asked Logan. Because I was the first to get recruited by Ross, Michael nodded. And let me guess, your specialty is killing undead, overgrown beasts, bandits, etc., etc. The mercenary job requires killing pretty much all the above. Being mercenary wasn't very much different from being an adventurer. They both would get the job done for an amount. Since Logan didn't seem like a genius guy, he made the right choice by becoming a mercenary in Michael's mind. Also, Logan seemed like a nice easygoing guy. I guess you're also here to keep the undead from killing the team? Yeah, you can say that. Why did you come to the southern continent anyways? I thought you cultivators hated crossing the void line. You know? Michael was slightly surprised, but he could tell Ross might have told Logan about where he came from. Come on, the way you dress is kinda dead giveaway. Besides, H and Ross told us about you. H? You mean the guy in armor? Yeah, no one here knows his real name, he just goes by H. I don't know what his deal is, but he rubbed me the wrong way. Whatever, tell me, David, do you miss being a cultivator? What could have possibly made you come here? Michael didn't feel like Logan was prying, but was genuinely curious about the reason for his trip to the southern continent. Besides, it was a logical question, as cultivators rarely came to the southern continent. No matter how powerful a cultivator was, if he crossed the void line, he would instantly turn into a mortal. Well, I like to travel and always wanted to see what the southern continent looked like. Let me tell you about the southern continent. It's like a shiny apple that is rotten in its core. The southern continent is infested with slavery, racism, war, hunger, plague, and all the evil shit you can think of. Trust me, your place would seem like heaven after you spend a few weeks in any of the southern kingdoms. He saw Logan's smile disappear from his face for the first time. He always looked like a jolly guy, yet when he talked about the southern continent, he looked gloomy. As a mercenary, I saw my share of evil shits. This world has gone to hell, David. All we can do is ride out the wave, you know what I'm saying? It gonna sound corny, but Logan, you can still clean this world if you follow the right person. For a moment Logan stared at Michael. Nah, Logan shook his head. After getting paid for this job, I'm gonna put down my hammer, buy a land, house, and live the rest of my life in the most beautiful place in this world, Aston Village. Michael was disappointed to hear him, but he couldn't blame the guy for thinking to settle down. If Logan showed any signs to continue being a mercenary, Michael would have paid him to work under him. He knew forcing Logan to work under him was just a waste of time, so he decided to let Logan do whatever he wanted. Besides, it was unlikely for all of the team to survive on the island. He fought Netherals and he knew how strong and deadly they could be. If the artifact was making the Netherals kinda smart, they might use the rainforest to their advantage, and if they did, it would be extremely hard for the team to kill Netherals. Where is this Aston Village? Giselle Kingdom. Since you like to travel, I'd be thrilled to give you a tour of our humble village after the mission. What do you think about that? Sure thing, wonderful. Logan gave a friendly pat on Michael's back with a wide grin on his face. Everything's connected to Giselle, Michael thought to himself. Michael already decided to conquer the Giselle Kingdom first. By conquering, he wanted to control the Senate or most of the senators. He had no time or desire to play the king for now. His goal was to form two armies, a naval army using the pirates and a military using gladiators and the slaves of the southern continent. I got to take a leak. Logan rubbed his belly before leaving the place. Gaia, do you have eyes on the ship? He established a connection to Gaia through his earpiece. Yep, we're perfectly blended with the darkness and following your ship. Michael looked around slowly, except he couldn't see the Silent Reaper or any other ships following them. I can't see you, which means others can't too. It'd be tricky after the sunrise. Don't worry about us. We know their destination, so we'll make it to the island faster than you are and wait for you there, said Gaia. After exchanging a few words with Gaia, Michael cut the connection before someone could notice him moving his mouth. Marcella was always looking at everyone as she was spying on them. She seemed particularly suspicious of Michael for some reason. Michael noticed this, but he chose not to make any moves on Marcella because if everything went according to his plan, she wouldn't be a problem and most probably the undead would take care of her. But suddenly Michael heard a loud thud sound coming from one of the crates lined up near the mainsail pole. Marcella immediately raised her crossbows as the others who heard the sound turned their gazes at the crates. "Captain? Did you hear that? It's coming from one of those crates." "What do you mean crates?" "I loaded them, there's nothing but food in those crates." Michael noticed Ross leaving the helm while Marcella loaded a bolt into her crossbow, ready to fire at whatever was making the sound. "Let me out." This time it was not a thud sound but a voice of a young girl came from the crates. "What's going on here?" Michael saw the man in armor coming out of the captain's cabin after the commotion. He looked at Marcella and then at Ross. "Someone's in there," Marcella coldly said. "I'm coming out of this bloody crate." Chapter 238. The crew members quickly unsheathed their cutlasses to attack the intruder as soon as she came out of the crate. Pretty much everyone had their weapon in their hand except Michael and Ross. Michael really didn't think that whoever was inside the crate posed a threat, hence he still seemed calm. On the contrary, Ross' face had shock and confusion plastered on it. "Don't attack," Ross declared. His voice contained a tinge of anger as well as anxiety. Since Ross was the captain, the crew nodded as they slowly stepped back a few steps from the crates. Marcella though still kept her crossbow aimed at the crates. Soon afterward, the top of the wooden crate slowly opened as a young girl in her late teens stood up from the crate. The girl had black hair, a beautiful oval face, round lively blue eyes and smooth silky skin. Although the girl wasn't a kingdom-toppling beauty or something like that, she would attract many youngsters' attention. "Maria, what the hell are you doing here?" Marcella turned her gaze towards Ross. She was surprised. Not only Marcella but everyone on the ship was surprised by Ross' words. "Ross, who is she?" asked with a deep frown on his face. His voice was not as friendly as before. The girl just stared at Ross' face, expecting him to answer the question instead of introducing herself. "She's my daughter and she's leaving." Ross tried to grab her by her elbow but she swatted away Ross' hands before he could touch her. "Daughter? Ross has a daughter? What is she doing on the ship?" The sudden appearance of Ross' daughter made the crew gossip as the silent atmosphere of the ship disappeared. "How did she get into the crates?" Jesse, the thief, opened his mouth, directing the question at Ross himself. "Maria, whatever the reason you have for being here, I don't care. You need to leave." His words were like that of the father, caring yet strict. "I'm not going anywhere. I'm coming with you to the undead island. Whether you like it or not." The girl folded her arms against her chest, refusing to listen to Ross. For a few moments, no one could hear a sound except for the sound of waves hitting the ship's hull. Everyone was stunned listening to the girl. Many wouldn't dare to look in the way of the undead island, yet Maria was trying to go to the island for some reason. "Come over here." This time, Ross didn't let her swat his arms away as he grabbed her by her elbow. Everyone saw Ross dragging the girl to a corner of the ship, away from prying eyes and ears. "You," Marcella called out, one of the crew members staring at Ross and Maria. Her shout immediately brought back the crew member to his senses. "Huh? What was supposed to be in those crates?" Marcella asked. "Ah shit." The crew member cursed as some of the crew members began to sweat bullets. Seeing their reaction to her question, Michael's curiosity piqued. "Food, we were keeping 2 days' worth of ration in those crates." Right after the crew members answered, even Michael's calm expression changed. The ship at least contained 50 people including the team. If they didn't have food to fill those bellies, they would be in big trouble before even reaching the island itself. A big person like Logan would have to eat an ample amount of food to sustain his body, except that they seem to be lacking food. "Tell me you keep extra rations somewhere here," Marcella gritted her teeth. The crew member was shivering and walking backward in fear. We do," her anger somewhat lowered down by his answer. "It could only feed everyone for a day," another crew member said. They were short on rations as the journey to the island would take 2 days, if the wind was on their side rather than against them. Maria had already compromised the mission by throwing away their food. Even Michael had to eat if he didn't want to use precious arch energy to sustain his body. And Ross were busy talking to Maria while the rest of them looked at each other's gloomy faces. "You idiots!" Marcella lost her temper. She yelled at the crew members. "What were you doing when she was throwing away the food? How about I throw your useless asses off the ship?" "Calm down, no one's thrown anyone off the ship." Logan interfered before the situation escalated into a fight. "We'll just have to manage with the ration we have and try to dash." "Try to do what? You want us to fish or magically create food for all of us?" Marcella rebuked. "If we could divide the ration into dash." "Shut up, glasses." When Jonah tried to offer a solution, she shut him up with a shout. She was really pissing off Michael. Instead of thinking of a solution to their problem, she kept throwing temper tantrums. In other words, she was being an A-grade bitch. Jonah, go and figure out how we should divide the rations, Brownie said, giving a friendly pat on Jonah's shoulder. If anyone has prior experience of fishing, get to work. I assume you keep fishing equipment in the ship. Yeah, we do. On top of being an expert on the undead, Brownie seemed like a guy with good leadership skills. After the crew members ran to the lower decks, Marcella returned to her quarters uttering no words. Do you know how to fish on a running ship, David? Logan asked, rubbing his temple. Nope, how about you? I was kinda hoping you would lend me some fish, Logan chuckled, regardless of their current situation. What were you thinking, Maria? The undead island is not a place you would go to despise your father. I'm going because of you to fix your mess. Ross was stunned as she continued. I told you not to do anything when you found the weed in my locker, but what did you do? Interrogated Johnny like he's some kind of criminal and informed him to the academy. She was shivering in anger at her father. If it wasn't for people standing nearby, she would have shouted to vent her anger. Every time you enter into my life, you fuck up everything. Why can't you just be a normal father for once? Her voice broke at the end. I don't regret my actions, Maria. But you will if you come to the undead island. You're gonna jump onto the boat and go home. End of discussion. She stomped the wooden floor in anger. I can come with you and you can keep me safe, or I'll go to the island by myself and probably die. Either way, I'm going after Johnny. After Mariah's mother died because of netheril bite, he always drowned himself in work, commanding a Spartan unit of Giselle. Maria always blamed Ross for killing her mother instead of locking her in a room until someone finds a cure for netheril bite. Coupled with her anger and Ross' separation from Maria distorted their relationship. Johnny is not the right guy for you, Maria. He's not worth this risk. Please for once quit being stubborn. Ross begged her to reconsider going to the undead island, yet she seemed resolute in her decision. Since this was the hunting season, there would be many ships approaching the undead island in the next few days, and he knew she would be able to get into any of those ships to reach the island. He would never forgive himself if he let her go alone and die. Hence he reluctantly decided to bring her along with them. At least he would be there with her to protect her. The island already took his wife away from him. He would never let the island do the same to his daughter. You stay with me all the time. Ross took a deep breath and spoke. Do you have any idea where Johnny might be on the island? We'll be much safer with the team and they won't come looking for Johnny with us. She retrieved a map from the bag hanging on her waist. My friend took this from one of the crew members of Johnny's ship. She handed over the map to Ross. The moment he opened the map, he was stunned because the X mark on the map was the location of the artifact he's looking for. This meant that another team is looking for the same artifact as he is. He's going to the island's center. She frowned, looking at her father's serious look on his face. What does it mean? It means he's with the team that's searching for the exact thing as we are. While they were in the middle of the conversation, H came back. Ross handed over the map to him. H2 had the same look on his face as Ross when he laid his eyes on the map. Another team is hunting for the artifact. H, do you know about this? H shook his head. Thanks to your daughter, we have no food to sustain for more than a day. Now we have to sail faster. Ross. H handed over the map back to Ross before looking at Maria. What are you gonna do about your daughter? She's coming with us. You kidding me? She's a civilian, not to mention a liability. She's already compromised the mission by throwing away the food. I won't let her jeopardize the mission further. This is my operation and my decision. H. If you don't like the way I do things, you can report me to the Senate and we both know who they gonna support. H knew his words were nothing but the truth. Until they could find the artifact, H knew he had to rely on Ross' skills. The Senate leaders personally appointed Ross for this mission. The last thing H wanted is to piss off the Senate leaders, which would piss off his employer. This is a bad idea, H said before walking away. This is, Ross said to himself. Whether he likes it or not, Ross knew H is right, but because of his daughter's stubbornness, he had no other choice. Chapter 239. While Jonah was trying to calculate the appropriate amount of ration one should consume, Michael and Logan were sitting leisurely on the ship's ledge with a fishing rod in their hand. Michael's expertise in fishing came from watching others do in the movies, while Logan had no expertise at all. Some say fishing will calm your soul. It is kinda relaxing. Logan, the full moon in the sky, the sound of the ocean, and the slowly moving sail ship made fishing relaxing regardless of Michael's inexperience in fishing. In his previous life, he never had time to enjoy such activities. Plus, he always liked to spend his little bit of free time playing video games, improving his skills as well as watching movies or TV shows. Only since he came to this world he was able to enjoy simple things in life like fishing. Even if he couldn't catch a single fish, he was enjoying peace and calm. The little chit-chat with Logan gave him an idea about the southern continent. I heard cultivators don't sleep or eat. It's weird, but you don't have to scrounge the gods' green earth just to fill your belly, huh? It's BS. It's not that cultivators don't eat or sleep, it's that we don't need to eat or sleep to sustain our body. Take me for example, I eat and sleep back there like you people here. Logan started to pour out all the questions about cultivators and cultivation as Michael answered his questions one by one. He answered Logan's questions in a manner that would tempt Logan to try to become a cultivator. Currently, it wasn't impossible for the Southerners to become cultivators after leaving the Void area, aka the Southern Continent, but most of them tend to have extremely slow cultivation speed as it would be difficult for their bodies to adapt to the new environment. The time flew quickly as the sun started to rise on the horizon, painting the sky in bright orange with its golden rays. The upper deck slowly began to get filled with more and more crew members. After sleeping last night with an empty belly, they all seemed weak and exhausted. The sun wasn't the only thing Michael saw on the horizon. He could see a merchant galleon ship. Look. A ship, one crew member shouted, his voice contained joy. Even Logan began to grin widely looking at a merchant ship. Merchant ships were usually filled with rations and they could buy rations to fix their current situation. Michael put down the fishing rod on the deck as Ross came out of the captain's cabin with his daughter. Despite the mess she caused, Maria looked refreshed after a beauty sleep. It was obvious Ross gave his potion of ration to his daughter as any good father would do. Looking at the crew members bouncing in excitement, Ross took out his monocular to examine the merchant ship approaching them. The first thing he examined was the flag flying above the sails. The white flag had a symbol of lotus. Male merchants. Ross recognized the ship's flag, so did H. H heaved a sigh of relief as they would be able to buy rations from the merchant ship, but Ross had black lines on his forehead. They are far away from their usual routes. Everyone had a relieved look on their faces except Ross. He knew male merchants and their usual routes. This area of the ocean was far away from their routes. Hence he was skeptical, unlike others. After talking to the team as well as some of the crew members, Ross realized one thing: they all blamed Maria for their situation. They were right to do so. He knew he can't keep her absolutely safe all by himself. He would need the team's support in keeping her safe after entering the island. If there was bad blood between them and Maria, keeping her safe would be a difficult task. Because of his love for Maria, he ignored all his doubts about the merchant ship. Slowly but steadily the merchant ship approached them while the crew members waved their hands at the merchant ship, calling out for help. Since Michael had no idea about the merchant ship or its routes like Ross, he too felt relieved to see the ship approaching. Although the fishing was indeed relaxing, at the end of the day he had to eat. "He'll go get the coins." H walked back into the captain's cabin to bring the coins. The merchant ship was now only 50 meters or so away from them. Ross' tensed body loosened a bit looking at the crew members on the merchant ship. They were all wearing a shirt with the Male merchant logo embroidered on their chest. Michael was watching the ship approaching from the far end of the ship with Logan. Little by little, the merchant ship's shadow darkened the deck as the merchant ship stopped beside them. The merchant ship was perfectly aligned sidewards soon. A wooden plank dropped from the merchant ship to their ship. After the merchant ship came to a halt, Michael was able to see the faces of everyone on the ship clearly. As he looked at them he couldn't help frowning. They all seemed tense, slightly trembling. Even the one walking the plant to them had no smile on his face, which was weird because a merchant would always typically smile. Michael stared at the old man approaching them. He was partially bald and like most of the merchants, he too had a fat belly. Looking at the sweat on the old man's face and the way the merchant ship perfectly aligned sideways, he began to have a bad feeling about this. "Pirates!" The moment the old man stepped onto the deck, he shouted, "Boom, boom, boom, boom." But it was too late as the merchant ship bombarded their ship with cannonballs. Logan was thrown away by the force of the impact near him as Michael jumped away to cover himself. "Open fire." Ross leaped towards the helm to move the ship after shouting an order at the crew. The sudden attack caught the crew members completely by surprise as a few of them were blown to pieces by the cannon fire. The air reeked of gunpowder and wooden splinters flew everywhere, inflicting major and minor wounds to the crew. Logan was crawling somewhere to hide behind a cover, yet the gigantic sledgehammer on his back slowed down his movements. Boom, boom, boom. The merchant ship started their second round while Ross' crews were busy running chaotically around the deck to save their lives. "I want everything valuable on the ship." Michael heard a shout as he looked at the merchant ship to see a middle-aged man with a greasy red beard at the helm. He wore a long red coat with 2 sabers hanging on his waist. Like every pirate he met in this world, he was dirty, spoke in a thick accent and chugging rum like water. "Ha ha! Also, he laughed like a maniac looking at the carnage he was causing. Following his mad laughter, pirates who were previously hiding in the lower decks began to swarm out of the ship to pillage Ross's ship. "Watch out!" H shouted at Logan as Michael turned his gaze away from the maniac on the opposite ship to see one of the sail poles falling in the direction of Logan. The speed of pole falling was much greater than Logan crawling away, therefore if one didn't stop the pole or help Logan, he would die. Right at the moment, everyone was fighting for their lives and unable to help the others like Logan. The reason for Logan's state was the first cannonball that landed just near him. The force knocked out Logan. If someone else was in Logan's place, the force would have killed them. The pirates easily jumped onto the ship and began to attack everyone they saw. Michael quickly took the Doombringer from his back, not to kill any pirates but to save Logan. He threw the Doombringer aiming at the sail pole that was about to crush Logan. The Doombringer soared through the sky. Shit, just when Logan was about to accept his death, he saw the sail pole blasted into smithereens. But he covered his eyes to prevent the wooden splinters from blinding him, but he clearly heard a loud thud noise amidst the sound of battle. When he opened his eyes, he noticed Michael's Doombringer lying on the floor. "Get your ass up, big guy." Logan saw David reaching his hand out to help him up. Logan didn't waste any time as he quickly stood up before another disaster hit him. "I owe you one," Michael just nodded. "Let's kill some pirates." He clutched the Doombringer tighter. Logan also took his huge sledgehammer from his behind with a bloodthirsty look on his face. Since they almost killed him, Logan wanted to pay them back 10 times back by crushing them with his sledgehammer. Even though there were many people on the ship, one pirate picked Michael as his target. With a curved saber on his hand, he rushed at Michael. Looking at the pirate running towards him, he swung the Doombringer as fast as he could. His speed caught the pirate off guard. The warhammer hit the pirate's rib cage before his saber could cut Michael. The pirate's rib cage caved as he was sent flying off the ship. The blood, bone and pieces of lung splattered across the deck. His death was horrible, even surprising Michael. Until now, Michael only used Doombringer to kill Netherals. This was the first time he killed a mortal. When he attacked the pirate, it only felt as if he was crushing a bag filled with nothing but eggshells. There was no resistance as the Doombringer crushed the pirate without an effort. You're tuning in to the Phantom Sword Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.